Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen humiliates me in front of our friends by rejecting me for being under 5'10" and still expects me to help her out financially. Important background. I, 19 male, was friends with Lisa, 19 female, and we had a few other people in our friend group. I met these people in my freshman year, and I wouldn't consider them super close friends, but we all hung out at least once a week while we were in school. I began to develop feelings for Lisa and decided to ask her out over text around May of 2023. I asked her if she wanted to get dinner with me, and she responded, "Just the two of us?" I said yes, and she left me on red. I was hoping for at least a yes or a no, and I was nervous that things would be awkward the next time we all hung out together. Well, the next time we all hung out was at the library doing a group study for a class we were all in. She came a bit late, and as soon as she sat down, she turned to me and said, "OP, I would go on a date with you, but you're too short for me. Honestly, guys under 5'10" shouldn't even exist." Ouch. "I would just see you as my little brother or a friend." She started laughing, and so did the other girls. My guy friends were just quiet, and they sat there awkwardly. I was a little disappointed they didn't defend me, but oh well. For reference, I'm 5'7" and she's 5'3". I was embarrassed, and I said, "You could have said that in private." I ended up leaving early and limited my hangouts with that group. In the few times I did hang out with them, Lisa acted like there was nothing going on between us. Fast forward to August, Lisa texted the group chat asking if anyone would be able to lend her $750 for her housing deposit. She was frantic and explained that her parents were kicking her out for personal problems, and she needed to put down her housing deposit, otherwise her on-campus housing contract would be terminated and she wouldn't have a place to stay. Everyone in the group chat said they couldn't help her and they wished that they could. That's when Lisa decided to privately message me. It's no secret that my family is well off and we don't have any struggles. This came up when we were talking about financial aid and how much we were getting, etc. She asked me if she could borrow $750 from me and that she would pay me back as soon as possible. I was furious and told her no, questioning how she could ask me after she embarrassed me in front of everyone back in May. That's when she said she was getting kicked out because she likes women, and that's why she rejected me the way she did. She didn't want her friends knowing that either. She was basically begging me as she wouldn't have a place to stay if she didn't pay her housing deposit. I told her that it wasn't my problem and I promptly blocked her. This led to me getting a flurry of messages from my friends in the group who accused me of having no heart and to grow up and deal with rejection. I blocked all of them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If your friends are so worried about Lisa's ability to pay her housing deposit, then they should pay it. If you feel like being petty, you could always say that you're a little short this month and you can't help. Not the jerk. She didn't want to be humiliated, so she decided to humiliate you? She could have rejected you in private and explained why, and no one would have known. That way, you'd have kept a good relationship and possibly would have been willing to lend her the money. But she didn't. She decided to distract from her by making you the center of ridicule. Made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. Not the jerk. I'm 5'4" and I don't date guys under 6 feet. I've hooked up with guys who are around 5'10", but would never have a serious relationship with them. But I would also never say anything as cruel as she did. There are much nicer ways to reject a short dude without actually telling him that his height is what makes him undesirable. But just a dating tip to help you in the future. If you're under 6 feet tall, you really need to have redeeming qualities to make up for it. Go to the gym and build muscle. Work hard in your career so that maybe one day you can find a single mom who needs help with her kids financially. They're usually willing to lower their standards if it means helping to provide for their kids. With as many dating apps as there are, we just don't have to settle anymore. And I know this may be tough for you to hear, but all you can do is improve yourself in other ways to try to make up for your shortcomings. Not the jerk. I guess you haven't heard of the 3 6s, bro. 6-figure salary, 6 feet tall, and 6-pack abs. Fortunately, I have all 3, and I've never had any trouble dating. But it sounds like you're going to have to lower your expectations, bro. We all have a number on the 1 to 10 scale, and shooting out of your league is never going to work out well for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his friend? Please let us know. As long as someone takes decent care of themselves, I don't care how tall they are. I think it's what's on the inside that really counts. I don't know, maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Am I the jerk for not helping my wife with the baby after she stayed out partying all night? I, 30 male, and my wife, 29 female, have been married for 4 years now. We have a 2-month-old daughter. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I work as a software engineer. I work remotely, so it hasn't been that awful to split responsibilities. We decided that we would be taking turns this weekend to take time for ourselves. Yesterday, my wife went out with her friends for a girls' day out. She said she'd be back by around 8 p.m. and to not wait for her to eat dinner together. At around 8:30 p.m., I called her because she still hadn't come home. She told me her friends were planning to have a sleepover as well, and she requested me to take care of our baby tonight. Before I could reply, she hung up on me. The thing is, our daughter, Rose, is colic, so she doesn't sleep well. We usually take turns taking care of her because she cries a lot, and it's very hard for one person to watch over her. I had to stay up all night yesterday with Rose. My wife came home at 4 a.m. and she was completely drunk. She just blacked out on the bed immediately after getting home. At around 8 p.m., I got us fries, nuggets, burgers, and drinks for both of us. At around 9 a.m., my wife woke up and said she felt very sick and asked me if I could take care of Rose for a few more hours so that she could eat breakfast and rest for a bit. I was exhausted at that point because I hadn't slept all night yesterday, but I agreed. I was really annoyed with her at that point though, because today was supposed to be a break for me and her getting drunk wasn't part of the plan. We both had breakfast and she went back to bed. I was scrolling Insta while waiting for my wife to wake up. At 1 p.m. she hadn't woken up yet and I ended up having to cancel my lunch plan with my friends. I was beyond angry at that point, but decided to wait for her to wake up instead of waking her up. She finally woke up at 3 p.m. I handed Rose to my wife and told her I'm going to the basement to watch a movie and take a nap. I also asked her to not disturb me until I came out on my own unless there was an emergency. I made myself a few grilled cheese sandwiches and took the strawberry shake with me to the basement. I set up an air mattress and some pillows, then I locked the door. Then I watched a few episodes of my favorite show, ended up falling asleep midway through the show, and woke up around 7 p.m. to 40 missed calls from my wife. When I went up to check on her and the baby, she said that I was very irresponsible and rude for leaving her alone with the baby for so long. I got mad and told her, at least I didn't get blackout drunk and leave you to take care of a colic baby for more than a day on your own without any sleep. She started crying and told me I was horrible for guilting her like that. Am I the jerk? Your wife is so wrong, really stunningly wrong. First, for staying out until 4. Second, for drinking so hard she was still feeling bad at 1 p.m. And then for having the audacity to yell at you for taking a 4-hour nap. Not the jerk, and hang in there. Not the jerk. I don't get all the people judging OP. They both needed the day off. They had a deal. She broke the deal. He was very nice to her and gave her more free hours from his own time. And yet she can't deal with her own baby for an afternoon? I get babies are exhausting. It comes with the territory. Mom is a stay-at-home mom. She needs a break. But OP is exhausted too. He was taking care of his baby, who doesn't sleep well, for more than 24 hours all alone. The mom needs a reality check. She was the one who chose to get drunk when she knew full well that the next day she needed to take care of the baby. Not the jerk. My parents ask me all the time why I'm not married yet. I have a good job, a nice house, and have no trouble getting dates. But this right here is why. Most young men who get married now end up just like this guy, not appreciated and walked all over. If he sticks up for himself, she'll leave you, take your kid, and you'll be paying alimony and child support. It's like loyalty is just not a thing anymore. I'd love to have a family of my own, a wife and kids, and work to provide for them. But every friend I've had who's gotten married has ended up in a similar position to this guy. He'll soon be divorced when she decides to leave him, and he'll rarely see his kid. Not worth the risk in today's world. Edit. I knew I'd be called insulting names for saying this instead of having a logical explanation for why I'm wrong. When you feel the need to resort to juvenile behavior like name-calling, it usually implies that you're the one who's in the wrong. My neighbor hit my car and lied about it, so I ruined 300 pounds of meat while he was on vacation. This happened about 5 or 6 years ago. For some context, my neighbor, who we'll call Chester, is your stereotypical weekend outdoorsman type. He owns at least 10 different baseball caps, and they all have camo on them. He's one of those. He drives a Jeep, which will be important later, and usually spends his weekends either hunting, fishing, or prepping for when the bombs drop. I tried to explain to him once that we were within the fallout range of a major city, so if we got hit, we'd be done either way, but whatever. Everyone needs a hobby, and some people's is collecting canned peaches. 2 weeks before the revenge, I came outside to see my car had a broken window on the passenger side, and that part of the frame was dented just above the door handle. I can tell immediately from the size and shape of the dent exactly what it was from. As I said, my neighbor Chester drives a Jeep, and mounted on his front grille is a cable wrench he uses for pulling stumps and whatnot. It juts out almost 1.5 feet in front of the bumper and is made of solid metal. Anyone with a picture of the wrench and the shape of the dent in my car could CSI it just from eyeballing it. The dent is almost identically shaped and situated at the same height the wrench was mounted. On top of that, Chester lives directly across the street from me, and he likes to back into his driveway. Conveniently enough, my car is always parked on the street, so he has ample opportunities to hit it. I asked Chester about it, and without saying anything, he shook his head while biting his lip like some clueless cartoon character. I then asked if anyone who borrowed his car might have done it because the winch itself is pretty scratched up, almost like he's been hitting things with it all over town. Again, Chester silently shakes his head and then tries to tell me it was probably teenagers. No exposition, mind you, he just blamed it on teenagers. I was fuming, but kept my composure and went home to call the police and my insurance company to report it. I managed to get a competent police officer who told me point blank that it was clear what happened, but without a witness, it would be pointless to try and prove it. The insurance agent was equally certain of Chester's guilt, but ended up recommending I pay out of pocket for the repair. Since I was parking on the street, it was a factor the insurance company might use against me if I filed the claim. When it came time for them to recalculate and adjust my monthly rate, I could see a significant increase. A few hundred out of pocket right now could save me several hundred a year going forward if my rate was increased due to my own negligence, which is what the claim would, unfortunately, be categorized as. Raw deal for sure, but at least he was honest with me. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, Chester and his family are going up north to rough it in nature for a week, and despite my cold attitude towards him in recent days, he asked me to keep an eye on his house while he's gone, since I'm the only person in the neighborhood that he trusts, apparently. I agreed to do it, not because I had any type of revenge in mind, but because he gifted me a large case of beer for my service. His one request was that I call him if we have any extreme weather because he'd need me to check on something. 2 nights after he left, we had a nasty storm. Wind, hail, and even a few rolling blackouts. The next morning, I called Chester to ask what he needed me to check on, but he didn't answer. Knowing Chester, he'd probably set up camp in some rural part of America with no cell phone service, even though he asked me to call him if this happened. After a few failed attempts, I went over to his house to inspect for any potential issues that might have arisen from the weather. I figured he was probably worried about his garage flooding since his yard was frequently a moat after heavy rain. I went into the garage and there was no flooding, but something caught my eye immediately. 4 large freezer chests, lined up side by side, taking up a huge chunk of the wall. I peeked inside and immediately realized what Chester was worried about. All 4 of them were packed from floor to lid with meat. Some of it was still in packages from the grocery store, and some of it was wrapped in butcher paper, likely game picked up from Chester's hunting exploits. But on top of one of the freezers was something else that seemed out of place. It was a red Solo cup full of frozen water, with a penny sitting on top. I thought that was weird and dismissed it immediately, but curiosity got the better of me later that day when I got home. I decided to Google it, and what I learned instantly clicked as a way to get the ultimate revenge on Chester for hitting my car and sticking me with the repair bill. There's an old life hack that people used to use when they went on vacation. You freeze a cup of water, then place a penny on top of it and stick it in your freezer. If the power goes out, the water will eventually melt and the penny will fall to the bottom of the cup. If you return home and the penny is at the bottom of the cup, your freezer was off for an extended period of time, and now everything on it has potentially defrosted and become unfit for consumption. I immediately got up and ran back to Chester's garage to scope out the legitimacy of my nefarious deed. As luck would have it, Chester's circuit breaker was hidden behind a tool shelf, not directly visible to the naked eye. Who would put a shelf in front of a circuit breaker? Chester, of course. So I promptly took the cup out of the freezer and sat it on Chester's porch to let it get a little sun. After a few hours, the ice had melted enough that the penny slipped right to the bottom of the cup. I then put the cup back in the freezer, being very careful to position it exactly where it was when I took it out, before moving on to the last phase of my insidious plan. I started blowing up his phone with calls and text messages. "Chester, where's your circuit breaker? I can't find it and your power is off. Get back to me ASAP." I did this countless times over the next 2 days before I finally got a call back from Chester. He told me immediately where to go in his garage to find the circuit breaker, which of course I already knew thanks to my prior detective work. I set the phone down and flipped the circuit breaker twice, once to turn it off and then a second time to turn it back on, giving it just enough time to mess with the digital clocks on all of his appliances. And with that, my revenge was complete. All that was left was for Chester to come back home, which took another 2 days. When Chester got back home, I was nervous but eager to see if my charade had worked. The next day, I got a knock on my door. It was Chester. He asked me if I wanted some meat to give my dogs. Apparently, the power had been off for too long, and all the meat in his freezers had thawed out while he was gone, so he was throwing it out. I asked him how much he had, and he said it was probably somewhere close to 300 pounds. He didn't want to waste it all, so he asked if I wanted to give some to my dogs. I graciously helped myself to roughly half a freezer's worth of meat, some of which I stored in my own fridge, and the rest Chester was nice enough to offer to hold in his own freezer until I needed it. The kicker is that Chester had no idea the meat never actually defrosted and was still perfectly good. That night, I helped myself and my dogs to a couple of nice steaks, courtesy of old Chester himself, who was still busy walking the neighborhood, unloading the tainted meat on everyone who had a cat or a dog that might want it. It was at least 4 or 5 months before me and my dogs went through all the meat Chester had given us. I don't know if I made all the money back for the repairs on my car, but I didn't have to buy any meat for many a fortnight. Genius to not actually spoil the meat. Odd this guy would hit your car and say nothing, but still trust you. I thought initially you were just going to waste all the meat, and I was going to call you a massive jerk, but this way is much better. Well done. Am I the jerk for not wanting to take my ex-husband's kids on vacation? I, 39 female, have been divorced from my ex-husband, 41 male, for 9 years. We have 2 kids who are 12 and 9. My husband got married to his new wife, and they have 3 kids in total who are 9, 5, and 5. They're expecting a 4th one. Me and my ex-husband share custody of our kids, but within these 9 years, there has been a drastic change in our economic status. I got promotions and now earn near 6 figures, but my ex lost his job. It caused his income to change and become low. His recent job pays slightly less than his previous one. Here's the issue. Since I can afford to buy a lot of things for my own kids, my ex and his wife don't like it. They say it's unfair to their own kids because they can't afford to buy new things like I can. And all of the kids should have the same stuff. Last year, I bought my son a laptop because he got the highest score on his exams. My ex didn't like it and told me that I'm spoiling my kids and making them into entitled brats. The issue arrived because his oldest with his wife, who's 9, also wanted a laptop too. And for my ex, their money is tight. He's the sole provider in their house, and his wife is mostly a homemaker, but works part-time sometimes. However, it's not like I do this to show off. I do tell my kids to be humble about their things they get and to not brag about them. I do buy gifts for my ex's kids on their birthdays and Christmas. In August, me and my entire family have planned to go to Italy. It's supposed to be a family vacation. I'll be taking my kids with me. They're excited too. My ex had no problem until he called me and asked if I could take his kids with me too. I was kind of shocked. He explained that they can't afford to travel, and his other kids were insisting that they want to go on holiday with us as well. They're sort of jealous of my kids for going abroad on a holiday. I straight up said no. I won't be taking responsibility for someone else's kids. Though I make a lot more money than he does, I can't afford the accommodation for 6 people. I told him his kids are none of my concern. After he hung up, I got messages from his wife calling me cruel and other names for ruining her kids' happiness, and she said, "I hope you're happy making kids cry. God will be pushing a greedy jerk like you." My dad thinks I did the right thing, but my mom thinks I went too far and told me to not take my kids so that their half-siblings won't be upset with them. My brother suggested that I pay half the price and let my ex pay the other half, which I know he will never listen. I rejected both the ideas. There's no way I would leave my kids for days to go on a holiday in another country. Was I really cruel? I know it's not the kids' fault. I understand their urge to go on holiday, but asking me to pay for 3 additional kids is too much. Edit. Since people are asking, he did cheat on me while I was pregnant. His new wife is indeed his mistress. I didn't mention it because I didn't think it was relevant to the story here. But it is relevant. This woman and your ex, after cheating behind your back, are name-calling you, berating you, and demanding that you financially care for his affair baby and other kids. This is not okay. They are horrible people. I know it was 9 years ago, but that's not right. OP. I do not take care of his kids. I only pay for the stuff for my kids. I only buy them gifts on Christmas and birthdays. As much as I dislike both of them, their kids are innocent. The least they deserve is birthday gifts. Not the jerk at all. Frankly, I worry about your kids and how stepmom and dad might be treating them. Are they guilting them into sharing, shaming them because they have more, and thus they do too? OP. No, I strictly told them not to push my kids to share anything unless they want to. They have no authority over my kids' stuff. My ex hasn't done anything like that. The fact that you buy gifts for his kids from his affair is more than anyone should have to do. How dare he ask you to take his affair kid and the reason your marriage ended on holiday? I'd tell the new wife the next time she says you're cruel for not taking them that homewreckers have their own place in heck, so she should watch the stones she's throwing in her glass house. OP. The irony is that she's a Christian woman. She thinks if she repents enough, God will forgive her sins. Also, she's extra mad at me because I told her that she should have invested in some birth control rather than whining about having too many kids to feed. OP. I have a college fund for my kids. I started it when I got pregnant with both of them. My ex does contribute to it a little as well. Even if he didn't, I would still have enough by the time they're ready to use it. Also, I buy them gifts because I want to. They've been calling me aunt ever since they learned how to speak. I'm not that cruel that I would punish them for their dad's mistake. I do not buy them expensive gifts either. Regardless of how their mom and dad are, they're very good kids and very well behaved. Update. So yesterday I went to my ex's house to pick up my kids. While I was there, his kids ran up to me and said they're very excited to go to Italy with me. I was confused. I never mentioned the trip to them, nor did I tell my kids I would be taking their half-siblings with me. I called my ex and his wife and asked them to explain this. His wife was avoiding eye contact. I demanded an answer from her. She said that she can't break their hearts by telling them the truth. I swear, I was furious. I had enough of this entitled attitude. I yelled at her and told her she must have had a screw loose inside her head if she thinks she can walk all over me like this. How dare she use her kids like this? If she wants a break from babysitting her own kids, she should send them to her mom's house. I will not be a free babysitter for her kids. She did try to retaliate, but I was talking over her. I cannot believe this woman would stoop so low. I screamed at her. I was already having a bad day yesterday, and her entitled Karen behavior was the straw that broke the camel's back. I told my ex to fix the mess his wife made, otherwise I'll take him to court. He tried to justify her intentions. I told him that I will stop sending gifts to his kids if he doesn't fix this. I had been nothing but polite to his wife, knowing that she was the homewrecker that broke my home. But enough is enough. I'm done being nice to them. His 3 kids are not coming with me, and that's final. I even explained this to my kids, who were a little sad but understood. Later that day at night, my ex called and apologized. He was humiliated by his mother for this. He's a grown man asking his ex-wife to provide for things he should be providing for his kids. He also had a fight with his wife because he didn't know his wife lied to his kids. He said he only had good intentions because he wanted all his kids to enjoy equal privileges. I said the same thing one Redditor commented, that our kids are not equal. It's unfair of him to push this equal privilege thing when our kids don't have the privilege of coming from a complete family because their father was a nasty cheater. At least his other kids get a full-time dad and a full house. They don't have to go to therapy to understand why their lives are different. And all of this happened because he can't even be strong enough to keep his marital vows. He failed as a father to them, and he failed as a husband to me. And not only that, he had the audacity to blame me for the divorce. I told him if the roles were reversed, and it was me who had cheated and got pregnant with another man's baby, would he accept me and the baby in his life? I still have yet to get the answer. He just said he was sorry and hung up. Sorry for venting. I had a really stressful day. I have yet to talk to my mom and brother about the issue. I can't wait to go to Italy to drown myself in wine and stuff myself with real Italian pasta and pizza. I may or may not update. Good for you, standing your ground. The new wife has a lot of nerve to try guilt-tripping you into providing for her kids. Then again, a lack of moral compass is how she got herself into this situation in the first place. OP. I think so too. I never yell at people. I didn't even yell at my ex when I discovered he was cheating. I guess it takes one bad day. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to use different body wash? The main point of this post is, I'm allergic to nuts, and my girlfriend's body wash contains almond oil. It isn't life-threatening for me to come into contact with it, but it does cause hives. I asked my girlfriend, Jess, to change the body wash she uses, as I'm getting hives from residue of her body wash in the shower. Jess was initially fine with it after a small back and forth, but has since spoken to friends and believes that I'm being too controlling, as do her friends. My friends are mostly neutral, with a couple saying that I need to nut up and just let her use whatever she wants. A little bit of added context is that we recently decided we wanted to move in together and decided to do a trial run, as Jess still lives with her parents and I rent my own place. So it's easy enough for her to move in with me for a few months to see if living together full-time works for us. It's never been a problem before now, as I've never had a reaction from touching Jess after she uses it, but I'm having a reaction from the residue that's left in the shower, usually on the removable shower head, which I need to use to get clean because I'm a big dude and just leaving it up there doesn't reach everywhere. Jess has always been aware of my allergies. She doesn't eat nuts, and if she knows we're going to do anything together, and the few times when she has, she thoroughly brushes her teeth before seeing me. How is this controlling? I think that because it's not life-threatening, they see it as unnecessary for her to have to change it. They think that me getting her to do it is controlling because it's not needed. Update. I wish I could come back and say that I had seen my own value and got myself out of the relationship, but the truth is that Jess broke up with me 2 days after the post. I was still thinking, and she asked to meet up to discuss things. I went in hoping for the best, but was met by her telling me that it wasn't working, and she didn't see a future for us where we're both happy. That hurt a lot. I spent the past few days sort of realizing how stupid my original post was. Of course I'm not the jerk for not wanting to come into contact with something I'm allergic to. I think a lot of you probably wondered why I'd even had to ask. The truth is that I felt like I was going crazy. I genuinely liked and respected her friends. I thought they were really smart. So to be told that this was the opinion of my girlfriend as well as theirs made me take it very seriously. When I went to my friends and received no support or validation, I started to convince myself that I was wrong. I also learned from the comments that continued exposure could worsen my reactions, so that's handy to know too. This dude dodged a bullet. I can't imagine not wanting to fix something easy to prevent someone else from having a negative health effect. The fact that she went as far as calling him controlling is crazy. I feel for the next dude she treats terribly. I think people overuse words like controlling and manipulative to the point that they forget their real meaning and how serious it actually is. Asking your partner to change body soap is not a big deal, even if it's not causing any issue. People throw accusations so easily nowadays. It's crazy. No more overtime? Okay, boss, whatever you say. Years ago, I used to work for a plastic injection company in my hometown. It wasn't a huge company, but they had 2 plants in my state, 2 in 2 other states, 1 in the UK and 1 in Germany, so not small either. It was a 24-hour production facility, which means the machines run 24/7 except from December 23rd to June 2nd. I was one of 2 delivery drivers who moved finished product from the plant to a nearby warehouse, and I brought raw materials and packaging supplies back to the plant. On a good day, I'd get 4 to 5 back and forth trips done in a 12-hour day. On my last run back to the warehouse, I'd also go around to the floor people and make sure they had what they needed to make it through the night. Driver was the only floor position that wasn't 24 hours, so that nothing would shut down. Well, sometimes they would forget something, and after my last run, I'd have to go back. I wasn't complaining. I got an hour or 2 of overtime every few shifts, and everything ran fine. One day, my supervisor pulls me aside and says I need to stop taking overtime. I explain why, and he doesn't care. No more overtime. I say okay, and we go on with our day. Near the end of the next shift, I'm 15 minutes shy of being able to clock out, and I'm just finishing packing up the truck to do the next morning run when one of the floor people comes over and tells me he forgot something. I say, sorry, no can do. I'm not allowed any more overtime to go and pick up the material. Apparently, if I didn't do it, 3 machines would shut down overnight. If any of you have ever worked in plastic injection, you know those machines get so hot, they melt the plastic being injected. If they had no material flowing in them, they'd have to get shut down or they would get too hot. It can take hours for them to cool down, and they have to be started from a cold state when you go to reboot them. So if it runs out of material, production has to stop. The machine has to take about 10 to 12 hours to cool down and then heat back up. This is all very unfortunate, but I've got to follow orders, so I clock out and go home. The next morning rolls around, and I'm called into the plant supervisor's office. He's my supervisor's supervisor's boss, and is one of the owners of the entire company. He's shaking mad because just as my coworker predicted, 3 machines shut down overnight, and we were going to be out of commission until nearly 2 p.m. that afternoon. He was going to fire me on the spot, but gave me a chance to explain myself. When I told him what I used to do and what my supervisor had told me to do, he let out a big sigh and told me to go back to the floor, and that if I needed to take overtime to keep machines from going offline, to just do it from now on. Shortly after that, my supervisor was called into his office. Now, unfortunately, he's the son of one of the other owners, so they didn't fire him, but I never got yelled at about overtime ever again. Edit. I forgot to include the fact that I later found out my little stunt cost the company something like $3,000 an hour and lost production over the course of an entire day because one of the machine's heating coils broke when it cooled down and had to be replaced. So all in all, I cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Guess it was easier just to pay me time and a half for a few hours per day. My little sister destroyed my apartment. Now I'm suing her. I, 26 male, have always protected and stuck my neck out for my little sister, who's 25, but she has a toxic case of baby syndrome. There are 5 of us, with the oldest being 35. The past 2 years, she's been reckless, irresponsible, immature, and above all else, disrespectful. She'll send 10-page letters going off on you, and then she'll block you before you can reply. Basically, reverted back into a teenager. 9 months ago, she needed a place to stay to get her life back on track after a bad relationship. Her credit is horrible. She can't rent, she can't lease, and I had an extra room, so I let her stay. She manipulated me into moving out so that she can do her own thing, grow up, become an adult. So I left. It put me in a bad financial spot, but I did it for her. I told her as long as she was responsible, kept up with the bills, we'd be good. No eviction. She got a repossession on my credit some years back when I helped her with a car, as well as our brothers, so this was going to be my last straw. She agreed because she was planning on moving her best friend and girlfriend in, so now 3 people splitting the bills. Cool. I had nothing to worry about. The money's there. She alone brings in $7,000 a month. Why should I worry? Come to find out, rent was 3 months behind. She had changed all the contact info in the portal, so I was getting no notifications. Keep in mind, this whole time we had been hanging out and seeing each other working on rebuilding our relationship. She had been looking me straight in the eyes, lying to me, telling me things were paid. And I kept telling her, okay, I trust you because you want everyone to treat you as an adult. Lights cut off, just everything behind. She'd been getting the police called over there numerous times for domestic reasons. When the leasing office finally got a hold of me, it was a mess. So now I'm trying to clean it all up. $7,000 is what I owe now. She has no intent on paying or helping, especially since she just got herself fired because she thinks she's too good to work. Works underneath her older sister, so always had job security. So now she's in cosmetology school. The apartment is damaged. Between the drama and the lies, she doesn't think this is all that serious. She even got arrested for the first time during one of those domestic calls. I picked her up driving in a snowstorm. She yelled at me as soon as she came through the doors. I'm sick of her. I don't want me and my girlfriend getting stuck paying for this. We can't afford it. So researched, and I can file a small claims case for property less than $20,000. She scammed the military, so she gets a 90% check that I would love to have garnished since she blows it all on BS anyways. I'm always cleaning up her messes. We're all done. I want to show her that she can't keep doing people over and getting away with it. I want my money. So, am I the jerk for suing my little sister? Not the jerk. She needs to learn some responsibility and accountability, and she's never gonna do that if she keeps getting babied. It's not your responsibility to keep getting walked all over for the sake of the relationship. Not the jerk, but you are an enabler. I also would expect to sever all ties with your sister once this goes down. I find it interesting she brings in $7,000 a month and she happened to incur a $7,000 in damage estimate. Also, if you don't have any of your agreement in writing, I think you can kiss the legal case goodbye. I hope you learned your lesson. Just remember, no good deed goes unpunished. Am I the jerk for yelling at my family during dinner in a crowded restaurant? For context, my brother, who's 26, and I, 18 female, have never gotten along. He's hated me since before I was even born. He spent my entire childhood controlling everything I did, watched, and even ate. At Christmas, he ticked me off. I was quite proud of myself for buying my first vehicle all on my own. He called my truck a piece of junk. Then he said to our parents, "Insurance companies statistically have higher rates for female drivers than males." He was absolutely insinuating they shouldn't put me on their policy, simply because he's been on their policy since he turned 16 and has never paid for insurance. He knew darn well he was getting bumped off when I was at it. First of the year, our mom told him to get his own policy. He was pretty salty about that. Fast forward to this past weekend. It was our dad's birthday. Honestly, I didn't even want to go and sit through my brother's usual BS about how great he is. But I went, and as usual, pretty much remained quiet. My brother asks, "So, when are you moving out?" I was like, "Excuse me?" He says, "You're 18 now. You need to get out on your own now." Literally, no one said anything, so I told him it's none of his business. He says, "Well, I moved out when I was 19. Here's where things spiraled. I said to him, "You're not even on your own yet, since you haven't bothered paying a single penny of rent in 7 years. He was fuming and tried changing the topic. My mom made a comment about that soon changing. Brother's girlfriend was like, "What?" So I told her. He moved out at 19 and hasn't paid our parents a penny of rent all these years. She was livid. Unbeknownst to anyone at that table, she had been paying my brother rent for 2 years because he led her to believe that he was paying the rent. The topic went off somewhere else, then right back to me. My brother trying to give me fatherly advice by saying I should focus on my current job and forget wasting time with college. This was absolutely unsolicited advice. It ticks me off when he does this because he always does it, and he acts like because of our age gap, he has so much more knowledge than stupid me. He again comments about me moving out, says to our dad, "I can't believe you haven't kicked her out after she brought all those animals in your house." They both laugh. I had enough. I got up from the table and yelled, "Just leave me alone." My mom understood, but she doesn't want the family to fight. My dad said I was extremely rude by lashing out, caused a scene, made undue stress, and embarrassed everyone. Apparently, after I walked out, my brother says, "Well, she obviously has something wrong in her head." I felt bad because I'm sure a few kids dining with their families heard me, and I shouldn't have spoken that way in front of them. And I guess I should have held it in and dealt with it later. But I've always let this crap slide, and I was sick of it. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're clearly aware causing a scene wasn't the best move, but if you're not going to get any support from your parents, everyone reaches a breaking point. Good news is, he's about to lose his girlfriend and be shown for the mooch that he is. People use situations like a public place to needle nerves. Your very much jerk brother thought he could keep going because he figured you wouldn't be able to react. He messed around and he found out. As for your father, he should have shut that crap down when your jerk brother started with his jealousy campaign. Not the jerk. My stepson thinks his kids are my responsibility. My wife was a lot younger than me, and she had a 10-year-old son when we met. Her ex had shared custody. I had a couple of grown kids from my first wife. My stepson, Charlie, and I never really bonded. He had a father, and he made it clear I wasn't his parent, just his mom's husband. I respected this. He was always polite and respectful, just distant. I helped pay for his university when he went, and we attended his graduation. When he got married, our invitation was made out to his mother +1. That was kind of a slap in the face, but we still attended and gave them a substantial cash gift to start their life. The thank you card didn't have my name on it. My first wife had passed from cancer, and it broke me. I didn't want to go through that again. Her youth was one thing that attracted me to my second wife. I know it was selfish, but I liked having a beautiful young wife to take care of, and she liked me well enough. I didn't realize how much I loved her until she passed. She passed away from a stroke. She was 49. Charlie came to the funeral with his family. His wife, whom I had only met at the wedding, and his kids. We had known he had kids, but he had never made the effort to bring them for a visit. My wife loved the kids, but Charlie wouldn't make the effort to come see us. My wife only had a very small estate, and she left it all to Charlie. He also took almost everything of sentimental value that she owned before we got married. I didn't begrudge him any of it. My first grandchild just graduated last year, and I went to his graduation. My son and his wife have worked hard to get their kids into college, and I'm proud of them. My son mentioned that my grandson had a job waiting and would be debt-free pretty quickly. I asked how much he owed. Then I wrote him a check to pay it off. I plan to do this for all of my grandchildren. I guess my daughter-in-law and my stepson's wife are Facebook friends or something. He found out what I did, and he came around to ask if I planned to do the same for his kids. I didn't really have any connections to his kids. I don't see them. They don't consider me their grandfather. I've personally only ever seen them at the funeral. I was really put off by him coming by to ask about money after ignoring me for years. I know that if my wife were alive, she would want me to help out her son. That just felt dirty. I said that I had money for them in my will, and if they needed it for university, I would give it to them early. He said I'm a petty little man, and that his mom would be ashamed of me for treating his kids like this. I don't really think I owe them anything. They have a real grandfather. I'm only including them in my will for my wife's sake. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You don't owe them anything, and it's very telling that Charlie wants no relationship with you except when it comes to money. They've already inherited under your wife's estate. In my opinion, you don't have an obligation to include them in your estate. I feel you have been more than generous in your treatment of your stepson. For the stepson to try and shame you and call you petty is shameful. Your decision, but I would cut this parasite out of my life and never look back. They have a biological grandfather that could meet their needs. Are your biological grandkids going to have 3 grandfathers leaving them money? I suspect not. So why should your step-grandkids get what would be a bonus inheritance in addition to the inheritance that they will receive from their father and mother's parents, and in addition to the inheritance they've already received from your wife? Basically, you're not treating your own grandkids fairly. Not the jerk, and I'd consider cutting them out of your will as well. He had his right to keep distance, but he can't expect to gain something. Your kids were in your life, so you helped their families out. That's how it works. He stated you are just his mother's husband, so he shouldn't expect anything. You want strict compliance, Mr. Food Service Driver? You get it. After undergrad, I moved to Texas to manage with a mostly local chain of Tex-Mex restaurants. At one of my first training stores, I was assigned a month in the kitchen to learn their back of house, such as the kitchen process. As I grew up in the business and had worked during college for a large casual dining chain, I was familiar and skilled in all of the general aspects of running this type of kitchen. However, it was a good opportunity to learn the particular aspects of this company's operations. After driving from Northeast Dallas to Grapevine early one morning, I greeted the driver, retrieved my clipboard, and started supervising the unload. He worked fast and had the truck unloaded in about 30 minutes or so. I knew I had a good 60 to 90 minutes left organizing, date dotting, rotating, breaking down boxes, etc., and was happy to sign him off so that he could get on his way while I continued putting away the order. For reference, this is how I had always done this and had never had any problems. As I'm working through the delivery, I notice we're short 1 case of 20-count shrimp. Obviously, that's quite a bit of money, but those types of things happen, and in my experience, the process was to call the vendor promptly and let them know. Most times, they would contact the driver, he'd find it on the truck and bring it later, or they would credit our order. But not this time. This time, the vendor tells me that they have a strict policy about this, and since I had signed the order, they didn't feel obligated to credit us. I told them that seemed like a bad policy when dealing with a restaurant that was doing around $70,000 a week in sales. This was 1995, and had paid promptly. They didn't seem to care. So next week, I again meet the driver on delivery day. Everything was going pretty much the same, except this week, when he handed me the delivery form to sign, I informed him that since we were short last week and his company didn't want to work with us, I wasn't signing anything until I had everything counted, and I couldn't count everything until I worked through the large pile. Since he couldn't leave without getting a signature, he got to stand on our back dock until I was done. I may have been a bit extra thorough counting and organizing that day because he was fuming when I got back to him about 1.5 hours later with a signed form. I assume that made him late enough to miss several deliveries that day, as many restaurants won't accept delivery between 10 and 2 p.m. But I know he was late to several stops because his company called me the next day and said that they couldn't work this way. They quickly agreed that if we cooperated and acted in good faith on future orders, they would return the favor. We received credit for the missing shrimp on our next delivery. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to leave the house for 6 to 7 hours a day? I, 24 male, am Canadian and have been in the US for 10 months, where I've been living with my American girlfriend, who's 25, for 7 of them. My time in the US is almost up, and I'm stressing about having to return to Canada. For one, my family is reliant on me to make money to support my grandma and pay for her medical support. I also want to earn money to give my girlfriend. She deserves the world. Because I have so many side hustles going on to earn money, I admittedly don't spend a lot of time with my girlfriend, but I've always been open with her that I'm not able to give her a lot of attention right now, even though I love her more than anything. My girlfriend lost her job last month, and as a result has been at the house more often. We live in a 1-bedroom and split the rent evenly. She understands that I'm busy all day and night, but I don't like when she's sitting in the same room as me. Even her presence is distracting to me. She will try to start conversations, and she's not the cleanest, so I would ask her to go to the bedroom for the day while I worked in the living room at my desktop. She was okay with that for a few weeks, but began to complain that she was stuck in the bedroom. She says that since she's paying half of the rent, she has every right to be where she wants to be in the house. I agree. So after a few big fights, we agreed she would leave the house during the day and I would leave the house at night. Well, now she's upset that she's spending all day out of the house. Her car was in an accident last month and has been in the shop, so she's been going to do work in the boba shop by our house. Before anyone asks, I'm not able to do the work I do during the day outside of the house, which is why I leave in the evening. Today, my friend was over and was sitting on the couch where my girlfriend usually eats lunch. I say couch, but it's really an oversized love seat. My girlfriend went to go sit in her usual spot to eat lunch, but I asked her if she could eat in the kitchen instead so she would have more room to eat. She went to the kitchen, but I could tell she was upset. When I asked her if everything was okay, she said that she was tired of me controlling her. I think she's being selfish and not considering that I need a certain environment to concentrate and get my work done, and that I'm doing all of this for her and my family, and one day I'll be able to spend all the time in the world with her. But that right now, I'm really grinding, and most strong relationships are built on sacrifice. So, am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to accommodate my work schedule? You're the jerk. Your girlfriend does not have to leave the house all workday. That's ridiculous. You need to adapt or go to the library. I seriously don't understand why he keeps insisting he's doing this for her and his family, while not providing one iota of evidence of what he's actually done for her. He manipulates her into moving in with him, doesn't let her move out when she's wanted to multiple times, and now kicks her out of the home during the entire day for his convenience. There's only one person who matters in this relationship. Am I the jerk for pulling my brother aside and giving him a reality check that he needs to get over high school or else he will end up alone? My brother, Jeffrey, did not have a positive high school experience. Jeffrey didn't have any close friends and it was a lonely time for him. He doesn't have contact with anyone from high school. Jeffrey thinks that if a person has contact with anyone from their high school, even past teachers, it means they peaked in high school. He constantly makes assumptions about people, often strangers, based on his own high school experiences. The comments he makes are mean-spirited and uncalled for. An example is how we were visiting a relative who lives next to a park and there was a random teenager using the fitness equipment. Without any prompting, Jeffrey loudly said, "Better live up those quarterback days now. You'll be working at a gas station after graduation." Whenever we go out, Jeffrey makes rude comments about the employees and assumptions about their time in high school. We recently had a very sweet waitress at a restaurant, and Jeffrey felt the need to say, "Bet she was a prom queen once. Now look at her, probably raising 5 kids alone." As I said, his comments are just mean and uncalled for. Recently, we were at my parents' house for their anniversary. My daughter, Emma, was in the living room doing an online dance challenge. Jeffrey made a comment about how Emma should have grown out of doing online dance challenges and, "Be careful, you'll wind up being your school's version of Kathy," who was the girl that I and Jeffrey knew in high school. Kathy was always nice to Jeffrey. Jeffrey had gotten angry and refused to talk to her after she went to prom with another boy instead of him. I reminded Jeffrey that Emma's 13 and to just leave her alone. Jeffrey again told me to, "Be careful, or else she'll end up like that big single mom who always talks about her cheerleader days." In the past, I've just told Jeffrey not to be rude, but talking about my daughter like this was when I had had enough. I pulled Jeffrey aside to a more private area and told him that he needs to get over high school. "I know it wasn't a great time for you and I'm sorry, but you need to stop taking that out on other people. Start seeing a therapist again and do whatever you need to move on. Otherwise, you're going to end up alone if you keep lashing out at others this way." Jeffrey told the rest of the family about what I said. I shared my side of the story, but several others told me that Jeffrey was just concerned for his niece's future after graduation, and telling him to get over high school dismissed and invalidated his experience. And not having close friends during developmental years can affect someone for their whole life. Jeffrey's experiences are valid, which is why I told him about returning to therapy so he can work on properly dealing with them. And Jeffrey's experiences do not give him the right to make such mean-spirited comments about others. It was a harsh reality check, but one that I believe Jeffrey needed before he ruins any more relationships. Am I the jerk? Guest takes all of our green tea, gets grumpy that we don't have any more. We have this extended stay guest, an older couple who is staying here while they either move in somewhere or help their daughter and their family move. They're nice people, but have that stereotypical old people crankiness. Since they got here, I've noticed that a lot of our inventory with breakfast and the coffee station started going quicker, specifically oatmeal, green tea, and our special flavored teas. I had a feeling it was them, because the rate that they've been getting low has been much quicker than it usually is, even during sold-out weekends. Plus, oatmeal and the teas are not that popular here, and typically we need to restock them for guests once a week average. To not make this sound like a witch hunt, this happened even on days where they were basically the only people who were in-house or the only ones who came down for breakfast and coffee. Since they've been here, restock has been daily. We had to buy more stock than usual for both, but it still depletes quickly. Now, green tea specifically. I put out between 10 to 15 bags when I'm on the morning shift, and after breakfast, each time I'm here, they're all gone. Even on days where they were the only people down for breakfast and coffee. Now that there's some context, fast forward to this morning. We only have 5 bags of green tea left total. The morning prior, I put the remaining bags out, and it was like 14 or so bags, and told management that we needed more that same morning. Since we only had 3 rooms in-house the previous night going into today, I believed we could survive on 4 bags, and I could get some more after my shift if we totally needed some. I got in, checked breakfast, nothing was touched, shocker, and night audit said he saw nobody all night or morning. That was the same with me through 9 a.m. when the couple came down a few minutes before breakfast was supposed to be closed. We say our good mornings and they grab food. After a few minutes, the wife comes to me and asks if there are any more green tea bags. I ask her if we were out, and she says that there were only 5 bags left. I then ask her if she needed more than the 5 bags, and she says that she needs like 10 or so more. I tell her that what we have out is all that we have left, unfortunately, and we won't be getting more for a little bit. She gets cranky that there aren't enough. She isn't necessarily mad, just kind of like that old person, I have no patience type of thing. Don't know how to describe it. Let me put some math out there before I continue. If she needs 15 green tea bags every day, that's like 100 bags a week, and about 450 bags a month. Seeing as how a standard box only has like 20 to 30 bags in it, and the Costco bulk has 6 standard boxes in it, we would need to buy a Costco box every week just for her alone. For context, before they showed up, a Costco bag would last us at worst a month, but usually 2 months average. Of course, I'm not going to call them out for taking literally all of our green tea, so I just apologize again and told her that we will get more green tea out there as fast as we can. She grumpily says okay and grabs her breakfast before going back up to the room. But I really don't like these types of people. I used to be that type of person who grabs as much free stuff as possible to potentially use later, even weeks after I leave the hotel. But since I started working at one, I realized that these people kind of suck. Not only does it limit other guests from having said items, like the tea, but it does put a hole in our inventory and makes us lose money. And this couple has the cheapest rate possible since they're staying for months. I mean, if you're going to actually use it, then that's fine. Go ahead and take it. But unless they're making pitchers of green tea and drinking gallons of the stuff daily, who really needs 15 bags of tea a day? My friend works at a coffee shop. Splenda is by request only because people were swiping handfuls of the packets to take home. More of a, I don't work there. I used to work at a local ice cream store that did not offer any coffee or espresso, just ice cream, milkshakes, and smoothies. Another local ice cream store did offer a wide range of coffee and espresso drinks. The two had wildly different appearances, themes, and brand colors. One night, a woman came in and we had this exchange. I want an affogato. Ice cream with espresso poured over it. Me. I'm sorry, we don't offer any hot drinks. Other store does, including affogato. They are located a few blocks up the street. Karen. Don't be ridiculous. Give me an affogato. Me. I'm sorry, I don't want to be rude, but I believe you must have confused this store with the other store. No, I've had it here before. Why won't you give me one? Me. I'm really sorry. I just can't give you something I don't have. The other store is just up the street. I want to speak to your manager. I'm the only person here, but you could call tomorrow morning to speak with her or log a complaint on our website. I cannot believe this. Me. I really don't know what else to tell you. Sorry. Other store has affogato, and yeah, she storms out. The next morning, she called to complain to the manager, that the very rude girl who was working last night refused to give her an affogato. To which the manager replied that the reason I refused to give her one was probably that we don't serve affogato, and she must have confused us with the other store. She yelled at the manager too and hung up. I remain baffled by this encounter to this day. My new employee, 24 female, refuses to do her job. Unfortunately, she ends up learning the hard way. Hi all, I'm 40 male, a senior designer of a very small company. I've been overwhelmed with work, and about 6 months ago, we hired someone to be my junior. I'm not technically her boss, but as her senior, I basically act as a substitute for one. I was a little suspicious of this girl, who's 24, because she seemed to have different experience than someone who would have wanted to apply for this role. She majored in UI/UX, but we had a lot in common and she seemed friendly. I used to work as a team lead for a game design studio and managed a bunch of younger employees who kind of saw me as a team dad, and she reminded me of the kids who used to work for me there. My last role was more competitive, but my wife is pregnant and I wanted to take an easier job to help her out with the pregnancy and baby. I wanted to ease her into things, but apparently she had some training scheduled for UI/UX person during her downtime. We don't have downtime here. I saw she had a meeting on her calendar with him after work hours, so I told her she didn't have my permission to do that. She said she had finished all the design work, but that's only because I was shielding her from the harder work. I'm the one having to do the difficult projects, and she's not even a little thankful that I'm saving her from having to work weekends. I didn't tell her to do these tasks, but as an adult, it's her job to take initiative and volunteer. I've tried to look out for her best interests and to be a friendly boss, but I also have to remind her that I'm in charge. During a meeting, when I was having a really horrific day, mostly because I was picking up work she should have been doing, plus stress of my wife's pregnancy, I snapped and called her a name I definitely shouldn't have. She looked upset and ended the call without even saying bye. I know it was unprofessional of me, but I've been called much worse than that in previous jobs, and I assumed she'd get over it. I was friendly with her via IM the rest of the day, but she didn't reply. I got an email from HR saying she had requested us, me, her, and HR, to meet about this incident. I'm not sure what to do. My wife is saying that calling her this name was crossing a line, and even if she's lazy and doesn't want to do her job, and I can see that it wasn't the right move, but going to HR seems way out of line. I know that I shouldn't have insulted her, but I feel like overall, she's consistently been the problem here. Am I the jerk? Bruh. Okay, I'm almost 42 and I have a senior role. I'll explain it really slowly. You're the jerk. Here's why. She isn't telepathic. She doesn't know you're shielding work. Give her tasks that you want her to do. You want her to do the work? Give her the darn work. What's up with that? Also, what she does after working hours is none of your business. And don't use unprofessional language at work. You're going to get in trouble with HR, whatever you think. Thank you. I'm like, wait, she's lazy? She finishes all the work you give her, and you haven't told her you aren't giving her other work? She schedules further training for outside work hours, which you think you can tell her she can't do? But because you know you are shielding and are stressed by the work she doesn't know she isn't doing, you are going to resent her and call her names? You are aware you've told us nothing she's actually done wrong, just the things you assume, and then act like have been proven through none of her actions. There is literally no reason for a boss to call an employee a name like that, ever. Even if she had done none of her work and had been lazy, it's still not justified. But also, that's not even what happened. And by the way, you aren't withholding work because you gave her work and she couldn't do it. You are withholding work because you decided from looking at her that she'll fail at it, and you aren't even going to inform her of what she should be practicing for you to be able to give her more work. I'm starting to wonder if the last group of younger people under you called you a dad in the endearing way, or if they meant it in an overly controlling, judgmental, disciplinarian way. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for kicking my mom out of my house because of how she reacted to her partner not liking my wife's chili? My mom and I have just come off of a 3-year estrangement. Her and my wife hated each other from day one, just really clashed, and my mom was going through some stuff in her personal life and acting out. We mutually agreed it wasn't fixable and we should go our separate ways. I recently reconnected with her at a party and told her that I wanted to try to fix things. My wife supported this. My wife is with someone I'll call Rob. I'm pretty sure they are engaged, but to be honest, not 100% sure. We've seen my mom a couple of times since reconnecting, and I can tell she is really trying. She seems extremely anxious and too nervous to talk, so we are taking it really slow, but I do believe that is her trying. Recently, we invited my mom and Rob over. My wife was making chili in the crock pot, and it was done, but we weren't ready to eat. She had some tortilla chips and said she likes dipping it in the chili and invited them to have some while we waited. Rob took some and gagged. I don't think he did it on purpose, and he seemed embarrassed, but my wife's chili is very sweet. She uses maple syrup, chocolate powder, cinnamon, and brown sugar. My mom laughed, which upset my wife because she's always been smug about not thinking my wife is a good cook. I could see my wife getting annoyed and snapped at my mom. Rob looked kind of ill and excused himself. My mom stood there for a minute in silence and then bolted after him and started banging on the bathroom door and demanding to be let in. He was ignoring her, and she started freaking out and said she wanted to be hugged. She has some anxiety and PTSD-related stuff, and he is her comfort person. Just as I got to the door to tell her to stop banging, Rob let her in, and I heard their conversation. Rob was saying that they had to get out of here because he can't eat that chili. My mom was kind of teasing him about, "Aw, you didn't like it?" and telling him she served it with rice with raisins and sugar and a maple sauce. A lie. And he said it tasted like dog food with sugar, and he was going to have nightmares. I saw red, and my mom was laughing. It just brought me back to how smug she used to be and how she looked down on us. When they came out, I told her to leave. My mom got really quiet again and said it was creepy that I was standing outside of the bathroom door. She said she's been trying, and she feels I'm looking for reasons to hate her. I told her to just go because I was too emotional to talk to her. She left willingly, but Rob told me I can't just nitpick and kick her out and then think she is going to want to continue to put work into this relationship. My girlfriend is trying to make me shower more than once a week. Not gonna happen. I, 24 male, know that a lot of people will just look at the title and just say I'm in the wrong because of the stigma, but hear me out. It's winter where I live, so I'm consistently cold and not really sweating or anything. I usually shower when I feel gross, and it usually takes me 5 to 6 days before I actually start to feel gross. I'm not crazy. In the summer when it's hot and sticky, I shower every 2 to 3 days like normal, but it just doesn't feel necessary in the winter. Anyway, the inciting incident here was on Sunday. I was ordering more shampoo and commented on how the price had almost doubled since last time. My girlfriend, who's 29, asked when I last ordered it, and it was sometime in mid-2020. She was shocked. How did it take you almost 3 years to go through a single bottle of shampoo? I told her that I don't use a lot, and eventually we got into how frequently I shower, and she acted like I was crazy. She didn't even know that I was averaging 1 shower a week because I keep good hygiene. I groom myself regularly, and I wear deodorant, so I don't think anyone can really tell the difference. Then my girlfriend, we'll call her Granite, just starts going on about how, "Oh, that explains the smell," and stuff like that. I totally think she was just making it up at this point. I've been dating her for 2 years, and she's never commented about my smell or anything. There's no way she just happened to decide that I smell bad now that she knows my shower schedule. She's just trying to shame me. We argued for a while about it, and then she went home. Today, I saw my mom, who's 56, for lunch, and I told her about it. She agreed with me that it's fine, and that she's never thought that I looked greasy or unclean. My mom also said that I should consider showering at least a couple of times a week if Granite has a problem with it. But if she can't actually tell the difference, why bother? I'm considering trying to say that I'm showering every other day, but keeping my normal routine. If she can actually tell the difference, she will know. But if not, then it will just be a little white lie. Is this wrong for me to do? Am I a supervillain just because I'm not following the societal norm? I remember reading that overshowering can cause head lice, but no one even talks about that. Reddit, has anyone else been in a similar scenario? Update. Hey everyone, appreciate the comments from people who are kind and tactful in their replies. I've done some research after seeing the overwhelming amount of responses, and I'm going to start showering more to prevent the buildup of harmful bacteria. Also, some people pointed out that I accidentally said Granite for the fake name. I'm dyslexic and I meant to put Garnet. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Hope you all have a good night. You're the jerk. Look, I only shower every 2 to 3 days too. It's better for your skin and hair moisture. Can't find anything about head lice though, and I don't know where you're in so much contact with lice that it's a concern. But your girlfriend is much closer to much smellier parts of you than your mom is. It's entirely possible she's been playing down your smell so she didn't embarrass you. Now that she knows it's a stubborn choice at her expense, she's not going to power through. If you're worried about your skin, make them cold showers and moisturize after. You're the jerk. Listen, I'm unemployed and I sit on my butt all day. I do not get warm. I shower every 3 days. If I were with someone, or hoped they would get near me, you better believe that I'd be showering every day or every other day. You're the jerk. Ew. The fact you're looking for acceptance on this instead of taking 5 minutes out of your day to shower speaks volumes. You're the jerk. A shower takes 10 minutes. Your girlfriend has been tolerating your smell for 2 years, afraid to upset you by saying anything. What kind of voodoo science believes showering could cause parasites? Not the jerk. Water shortage crisis in America is a real thing. One thing I will never understand about Americans is how you all act like you care about preserving water, electricity, and the environment. Yet, here you have a man literally preserving water by taking a shower once a week, and you all treat him as if he's scum for it. It is heartbreaking to see. In my country, nobody takes a daily shower, and once a week would be considered a very fortunate opportunity for the upper middle class. When I was younger, I didn't even know what a shower was. We would just wash ourselves off with wet rags every so often. It seems to me that the privilege many of you have has completely gone to your head, and you look down on others who don't see the need to take a shower every day, thereby wasting hundreds of gallons of water. If anything, I applaud OP for going against the norm and not giving in to wasting water like most Americans. Edit. You can disagree with me all you want, but calling me hurtful names and scolding me and insulting my country and its people is not acceptable. I know there are many Karens in America because I've read many of the stories, but it's unfortunate that so many of the younger people as well, who are supposed to be more open and accepting than the older generations, is, to be perfectly honest, no different in how judgmental you all are. Edit 2. Since some of you brought it up, yes, toilet paper is another completely unnecessary waste. As long as you wash your hands properly afterwards, hand is a much cleaner and more sanitary way to clean up after your business. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
Bruh, all dudes start to get stinky after about a day or so. It's just part of being a man. Just take a shower, bro.
Boss told me to deep clean the back and to not come out to the front for any reason, so I did. I'm a 20-year-old male that works at a very popular restaurant in a very snobby area. My main job is to assist the servers in any way I can, so they only have to worry about sweet-talking the customers. I do all the heavy lifting for them, whether it's cleaning their tables or taking their drinks and food to their tables. I'm doing it, and all they have to do is focus on making the customers laugh. They get tips that range from $17 to $40 per table, while I make $8 an hour, and I get treated poorly. Enough backstory. Cue the malicious compliance. My manager came up to me in a "I'm better than you" mood and told me to deep clean the floors, ice makers, walls, trash cans, and racks, and to not come to the front for any reason. I'm very annoyed at this because none of those things are my job duties. We have a staff that deals with all the cleaning of the back, so it didn't make any sense to have me do it. These tasks would have taken me an hour and a half max, but I was feeling a bit cheeky and decided to really deep clean the back until it was spotless. About 30 minutes later, the same manager comes up to me and tells me that there are 4 tables that need cleaning and 2 other tables just got set, and I need to bring their drinks to them. I looked at this man with a stare of a 20-year-old that has no bills to pay, and I said, "No, I'm not done cleaning." He looked shocked and responded angrily, "You can finish later. They need help." And I countered with, "No, it's filthy here. We don't want a health inspector to just walk into this filth, do we?" He storms off like a toddler that didn't get their candy. 2 hours go by and I'm on my hands and knees scrubbing as if I was working for Chef Gordon Ramsay himself. The same manager comes back again with a smirk and says, "Wow, this looks like it's going to take you all day long. Maybe you should come to the front and help the servers since there's a huge Sunday rush." I replied with, "You know, you might just be right," and I go back to cleaning. He storms off again. Fast forward to 2 minutes before my shift ends. My knees, legs, and fingers are all aching from cleaning. I shuffle my way to the front where my manager has been waiting for me, and he says, "You finally decided to come help, huh?" And I look at him without saying anything and clocked out. And then I tell him, "Sorry, I'm not clocked in." I walked out to my car while he was blowing my phone up. I didn't care. I had 5 days off, back to back, and he can't fire me since I did as he told me to. The moral of the story is, don't think you're better than someone that has nothing to lose. Edit. For all the people that have been commenting that he can fire you, yeah, you're right, he could. But he won't do that because I'm the only one that is working the position, and no one has applied to come work at the place for $8 an hour. There are more details to the story than what I told, so instead of trying to be smart, just ask, why do you say that, instead of assuming I'm just some entitled kid who thinks they can run the world. Thank you for reading. Edit 2. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I can't read most of y'all's posts, but I'd like to say thank you and answer a couple of questions. I don't have any living, food, or insurance bills. The only things I have to pay for are my flight school and saving up for a car, which I don't consider bills since I'm not being hunted down for those. I'm also having a job interview tomorrow at a place that pays $17 an hour, and I'll be working 1/3 of what I am at my current restaurant job. Lastly, I do get tip shares from the servers, but it goes straight to my paycheck, so that means that the servers can report less of what they make and give me less. So instead of making $8 an hour, I'm making $9 an hour. I did the math through my paycheck. Thanks for reading. Am I the jerk for saying my wedding will be a no young adults wedding, even though my family isn't happy about it? I, 55 male, have always loved kids, even though I never wanted to have any of my own. In July will be 20 years since I married my wife, who's 48. We were talking about having a big party to celebrate and decided to redo our vows as well. For context, I have come to seriously dislike this trend of child-free weddings. Yes, they make noise and don't behave perfectly, but that's what makes weddings fun. Most weddings nowadays are so boring and lifeless. Recently, 2 young cousins and a niece, all in their 20s, had child-free weddings. As I said, I don't have kids, but that bugged me. When the first child-free wedding was announced, I expressed disappointment, but didn't push or say anything else. When my niece also decided to have a child-free wedding, I talked to my sister in private once and never mentioned any more. My sister also thought it wasn't good to exclude the kids, but that's what my niece wanted. The third wedding was no under 18s, which I think is even more absurd, but this time said nothing. So to the question in hand, last week I sent a message in the family group chat telling people to save the date, that we were planning a second wedding and a big party to celebrate our 20th anniversary. And just to be cheeky, I joked that this would be a no young adults wedding, so no 18s to 29. This was a joke, and I never intended on enforcing this. I was just trying to make a point about the absurdity of excluding people from weddings based on age. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't go over very well. People asked why, and I said it's because it's going to be an open bar, and young people don't know how to behave and drink responsibly. Similar to one excuse for the child-free weddings, because people will drink. My niece caught on that I was joking, but sent me a message privately saying it was hurtful for me to make fun of her wedding day. I said I wasn't making fun of it, only pointing out the absurdity of not allowing kids. Soon I came clean on the chat that it was just a joke. Most already had seen it for what it was, but people were still saying that I was a jerk. I didn't think it was bad until my wife saw the thread and went berserk on me. I hadn't even realized she wasn't reading the text as the situation unfolded. She apologized in the chat and told me my idiotic joke could have ruined our anniversary if I hadn't already. She was embarrassed and hurt. Am I the jerk for trying to make a point about child-free weddings? Am I the jerk for doing it without telling my wife? Am I the jerk for thinking excluding people from weddings based on age is stupid? Am I the jerk for embarrassing my wife? You're the jerk. There's nothing absurd about not wanting kids at a wedding. I don't understand what's so hard to understand about that. This is the 4th post I've read on this forum about child-free weddings just today. You're the jerk. Child-free weddings are very reasonable. They cry, yell, make scenes. It's more than reasonable to not want them at a wedding. You're the jerk. Get off your high horse. You sound ridiculous saying how disappointed you were at your family's child-free weddings. Were you paying for the weddings? Did you volunteer to babysit all of the kids? If not, shut up and sit down. As far as your immature, passive-aggressive joke, it backfired because it was dumb. Way to take away the focus of an event that should be romantic and should be about yours and your wife's love and commitment to each other. I hope, for your wife's sake, you can turn this around. You owe everyone a huge apology, and you owe your wife and niece an enormous apology for turning your anniversary into a joke and making it all about you and your ridiculous judgment. You're the jerk for going out of your way to stick it to people. Let's face it, it wasn't a joke. You were making a point as you admitted yourself, and it's none of your business how other people choose to have their weddings. You could invite kids to your celebration, but this was just petty. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk for the joke he made or not? Please let us know. Can't give me the business loan I need? Okay, I'll use your quote to secure a better one. I own a small business, and due to recent positive exposure, I've been getting inundated with new customers. Due to the increased flow of people, I've needed to expand my brick and mortar to accommodate more people. Things like retiling the bathroom, fixing up our patio area, installing better ventilation, etc. However, due to the current economic outlook, a lot of small business loan lenders are a bit more skittish about giving out larger loans. I decided to use a popular site that puts small businesses with lenders who will give them term loans at decent rates. After going through several lenders, I found one that had the amount I wanted for the APR I was looking for. The rep seemed nice in the beginning. He was very cordial and explained the process, background check, paperwork, etc. that I would need to sign and submit to secure the loan. At this point in the story, I should note that the Lender Connect company has a policy that if I get a better offer from one of the other connector companies they put you in touch with, if it's within $10,000, they'll match it with another lender if they can get you a better rate. So after talking to this guy over the course of a week, I get an offer for the exact amount and percentage rate that I wanted. I tell him that I need a day to read through it all and I'll get back to him. I figure if I'm going to take on a large sum of money, I should at least know the finer details of the contract. An hour later, he starts saying that this offer is only on the table for the next 2 hours and that if I wait longer, he will pull it and only be able to give me a lower amount at a higher rate. He then proceeds to tell me that only his company can get me the amount I need and no one else can, so they are my only option and that I need to accept right now or else I'll be out of options. Cue the malicious compliance. I immediately call the main Lender Connect rep who put me in contact with this rep. I explained that I received a great offer from them, but I wanted to see if another company could give me a similar loan amount for a better interest rate and quoted them their policy of matching with another of the lending companies they work with. The rep said to give them 30 minutes. 35 minutes later, they tell me that they found another company that would give me a loan that's 2% lower interest rate and $5,000 more than the other company. I say great, get on the phone and sign with them. 1 hour later, I called the jerk back. He sounded super smug, assuming that I would have no other options but him, and asks if I have signed the contract. I say I did, with another company, since he's operating by the Lender Connect's guidelines. I submitted his quote, and I was able to secure a better loan. I get silence on the phone for 5 seconds, and he mumbles out, "Cool beans." I then wish him a great day and good luck with securing clients and end the call. Gotta love company policies. Anyone who tries to pressure you into signing immediately is hiding something. Could be relatively benign, like, I need to get this deal across the line today to hit my bonus. Or it could be something catastrophic, like unfairly heavy penalties for late payment. But there is always a reason they don't want you to look too closely at the document. You should have seen it. I was talking with a few coworkers, and apparently something I'd gotten super used to doing in a previous job I did at the hotel and blew a handful of colleagues away. Backstory. I used to be in retail in an area bursting with old money. People who have lived their whole lives being catered to and being told yes. I was often one of the few people who told them no. There was a waiting list in my profession, and you couldn't bribe, complain, threaten, or be nice to get further up that list. People still tried, and I learned how to stand my ground against senators, CEOs, lawyers, just old money people, not to mention their wives. With that job, I got amazingly good at being strict and no nonsense in life. I stopped taking anything. It really comes in handy, both in life and professionally. The story. On our wedding block, Resume Sales gives us the time of the shuttle departure and the ceremony. On this weekend, a half hour before the shuttle was going to arrive, guests started coming down in cocktail dress. I was on mid-shift, and the PM guy and I are going about our business and complimenting the occasional outfit. It starts to feel like it's been a while when my coworker points out it's departure time for the shuttle, though it's not here. Okay, weird. 10 after, and it still hasn't arrived. 20 minutes later, and the ceremony is starting soon. Then the front desk gets a phone call that I pick up. "Thank you for calling the hotel. This is Valai speaking. How may I help you? Hello, is this the super full name of the hotel? Yes, it is. How may I assist you? This is Mary Sue from the shuttle service that's supposed to pick everyone up. Are there wedding guests in the lobby? I look at our bursting lobby. Yes, there are. Changes from professional to exasperated casual talk. Oh boy. Look, you see, the bride never paid us, not even a deposit, so we told her we're not coming, but we never heard back from her. I noticed the date and time and decided to check if she had found a different shuttle. Is the wedding still at this time? Oh crap, it is. I'm really sorry. It's fine. Thanks for calling. Good luck. I hang up the phone and ignore my coworker who's looking at me confused and a bit worried. I take a deep breath, move from behind the front desk so I'm in front of it, and loudly clap my hands twice. Can I please have the attention of Jim and Jane's wedding guests? We've just received word from the shuttle that they will not be arriving, so please use your personal vehicles to drive to the venue. The front desk will be happy to provide the venue's name and address if that wasn't provided to you. Please remember not to drink and drive. Our bar will be open for drinks until 2 a.m. if you're a designated driver. Enjoy the wedding. People just looked at each other and walked out. I've never seen a group leave a lobby so organized. I stepped back behind the desk and my coworker was looking at me with bug eyes. I looked at him and just said, I don't do shoot the messenger. He replied, I see that. I go over to the bar to update them. Expect patrons tonight. The bride messed up the shuttle, so hopefully there'll be designated drivers. Yeah, we could hear that over here. Impressive. Thank you. Hope you get tipped well. Somehow, this became a story in the hotel and bar. When I talked with that coworker later in a circle with a couple of other front desk associates, he said, You should have seen it. She didn't pause for a moment, just hung up the phone and walked out there without pausing, and literally nobody got upset at us. Moral of the story from me to anyone in customer service, sometimes you have to leave no room for argument. Just state the situation and don't accept any pushback. I didn't let anyone get mad at me. The front desk lady just telling them the situation, and they didn't. Don't let guests bully you for anything. Work on it and you'll get there. When you inevitably get into a similar situation, good luck. Am I the jerk for giving the dream vacation of my ex-fiancé to her sister and husband? I met my ex's sister in high school when she started dating my best friend. During our senior year, she got pregnant and they married soon after. After high school, I joined the military. I served 6 years before getting medically discharged. Ex and I started dating. I got a good job that would have me leave a couple times a month, up to 10 days at a time. While doing some last-minute wedding planning, a text from her sister popped up asking, Have you told OP about what you did with your ex-boyfriend? If you don't tell him tonight, I will tomorrow. I asked her what was that. She tried to play it off. I kept pressing her, and she said that during her bachelorette party, she ran into him, but nothing had happened. It was an obvious lie. I went through her phone when she fell asleep. There were texts and pictures with him all the way back from when we started dating. They would hook up every time I went on work trips, sent proof to my phone. I woke her up and kicked her out and ended the relationship. She did the cheater script. I told her Stephanie looked a lot like her ex-boyfriend and showed her one of the screenshots of them together. She started to cry and I gently got her out the door. I canceled all wedding plans and needed some help calling guests to inform them that the wedding was off. My friend's wife said that during the bachelorette party, she caught them sneaking away together. When she confronted them, she gave my ex the option of coming clean to me herself or she would do it. She did not know it was an ongoing thing. Now on to the honeymoon vacation. I had planned it so that it would be perfect for my ex. It was a 10-day trip to another country that she had always said was a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list place. There were nice hotels, amazing experiences, and overall her dream vacation. I was already out about $10,000 for the wedding and more if I canceled the honeymoon trip. I made the decision to offer it up to them, since I knew that they never had a honeymoon or any real vacations since they got married when they were young and they had had kids. Also, they just saved me money and time. They accepted. They were able to get the time off work and made arrangements for the kids for the trip. My ex found out about it and she flipped out and was calling me and texting me about how much of a jerk I am for doing that to her. How I knew that it was her dream vacation. How I ruined her life. I got messages from her friends and some of her family that she lied to and blamed me for the breakup. Her ex even texted me saying that I'm not a real man and then threatened me. She must have went there last night, as he shouldn't even have my number. I've not responded to them at all. But am I the jerk for giving my cheating ex-fiance's dream honeymoon to her sister and my best friend? Take the threat to the police. You owe your cheating ex literally nothing. Not the jerk. I hope her sister will have the best time and won't stop talking about the awesome vacation for years. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for selling a used car, and when the buyer called me a week later complaining, reminding her it's a used car? 8 days ago, I sold a used car to a woman. I was the second owner, and I know every nut and bolt that has ever been touched on this thing. First owner was my mother-in-law, and she gave me 3 folders worth of paper documenting every little thing from the day she took the key from the dealer. Also, I just had the emissions tested 6 months ago. I've driven it about 500 miles since then. I only sold it because I was handed a crazy deal on a newer car. Well, a 2012, and I can't drive too. My phone rings today. The woman tells me she registered it Monday, but she took it to a mechanic and he said the catalytic converter was ruined and was throwing codes. Okay, well, I immediately suspect that mechanic, as the code that she mentioned is almost always the O2 sensor and rarely the catalytic converter failing. It's absolutely possible that the cat failed, but honestly, that's not the thing you jump to first. You change the O2 sensors and clear the code and see if it comes back. In fact, you should change front and rear sensors because that will eliminate both from the problem, as the code covers both sensors and the cat. Anyway, she tells me the story. I replied, okay.
Well, what can you do to help me? This is very expensive.
You bought a used car as is. I can't help you if you think I'm financially responsible for this. The sweet voice disappears. She got insta-mad.
Well, I think you should do something. This feels like a scam. This is gonna cost me so much money.
Lady, I think the mechanic is lying to you. You should definitely take it somewhere else. Now she starts actually yelling into the phone.
You sold me a piece of crap that was broken. You never said the catalytic converter.
Oh no. So I yell, ma'am, repeatedly until she stops talking. Let me stop you there. You bought a used car as is. Do not call me about this car again. And I hung up and blocked the number. Now I know there is an exhaust leak just after the muffler, and I told her that. The emissions test place said that has no bearing on the results, as the cat was processing the exhaust before it hit the leak, and the leak is literally 2 inches from the exhaust tip at the back end. Again, I disclosed the leak and the vibrating heat shield that needs tightening every year or two. I told her everything, right down to the fact that I lost a 10mm bolt for the belt shroud and zip-tied it down. I tried to be 100% transparent, and she bought it anyway. I feel bad because I think a shop is trying to scam her for a cat and rear O2 sensor when it's probably just the O2. But now I'm blocking her and not telling her that because she went from 0 to 987 miles per hour yelling at me. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. So I know nothing about cars. But if you buy a 15-year-old car with some mileage on it, it will have problems. And then you either take it to the shop before you buy, have someone you know take a look at it before you buy, or you just don't buy a used car. Ignore her and make sure to keep both the ad and the document of sale. Not the jerk. Seems like you did everything you could to inform her of the condition of the car. Once she bought it, everything on it was her responsibility. Heck, she might even be trying to scam you. What proof do you have that anything she said was true? Maybe she's just trying to get money back from you. Karen demands Disney-only gifts for her daughter's birthday party. My niece just turned 5, and we got her a Magic Mixie. It's like a magic cauldron toy. My sister, Elsa, has a strict Disney toy-only policy and literally gives us lists of acceptable Disney-only toys. But that's not what my niece wanted. She's been obsessed with getting a Magic Mixie since her friend got one. My brother-in-law doesn't care and gets her other stuff all the time. I texted him and he said it was okay to not stick to the list since the grandparents got her stuff that wasn't Disney related. He said he wants niece to branch out more and to ignore the list. Elsa is a Disney adult. Everything has to be Disney related. Before my niece was born, Elsa sent out a Facebook post and a family-wide email that anything without a Disney character on it, toys, clothes, bedding, furniture, anything, would get thrown out. Not donated, thrown out. We've never actually sent my niece a gift at all because we know Elsa would throw it away. Disney is her aesthetic, and she'll throw things away in front of the people who gift them to her if they're not plastered with cartoon characters. At her birthday party, my niece opened the Magic Mixie and went bananas. Elsa didn't say anything other than a neutral, "How cute," and then moved on to something else. After the party was over, Elsa went crazy and said it was my fault that she has to throw her kid's toy away. Apparently, her and brother-in-law got into a big fight when she tried to throw it out during the party. She also tried to give it to several of the parents at the party. The moms from her mom group called her insensitive that she had tried to get rid of a toy her kid was so excited about and asked if she was going to do that with their gifts. My mom called me later and said I was a huge jerk for not sticking to what Elsa wanted and for making her anxious about the presents, because I guess after the party, her mom group of friends got upset with her and they found out that she throws away gifts, so she and niece are uninvited from a lot of spring activities. Am I the jerk for not giving in to a Disney adult and getting the kid the toy that they actually wanted? Not the jerk. Does Disney have a psychiatrist character that Elsa would be willing to speak with? OP. I wish. I think the Disney thing has to do a little bit with maybe clout or money. We grew up poor, and I think my sister thinks rich people like Disney. She really seems to conflate Disney with high quality and high class, which is super weird. Refuse to pay me for piano lessons? Okay, I'll count every minute and charge accordingly. When I was 14, I was qualified fully in my country in a piano playing performance qualification. I had worked really hard for this and was so proud, my parents too. I was too young to join paid orchestras, and they didn't exist near me. So instead, I handed out business cards to residents nearby in a fairly wealthy area and thought I could make some money teaching after school. Teachers in the area were charging 20 euros per half hour, so I charged 17 because of my age and got very lucky that a few mums caught on and switched to me instead. I quickly had 4 to 5 kids/adults to teach every single weeknight in an area I could bike around. This was roughly 400 euros every single week. An hour's lesson was 50 minimum, with a short water break and explanation of homework at the end. A half-hour lesson was 25 minutes, with explanation and homework at the end. I made all of this very clear and learned it was necessary through time to walk people carefully through homework and exam prep. These parents paid 10 lessons in advance every time, and I kept a calendar and updated parents weekly on where they were at. One parent would always ask for a full summary of all 10 weeks for all 3 of her kids, and I was happy to provide it. Suddenly, one week, she decided she didn't owe me money for the next 10 lessons until I had made up for lost time. I was obviously very confused and asked her what she meant. She cited the reason that I cut 5 minutes off every 30 minutes and 10 minutes off every hour, so I should teach that extra time before getting more money. Here's the real kicker. Her kids were horribly behaved. They were easily the most spoiled, entitled kids I taught, and often said things like, "Since we pay you, don't you work for me?" They were ages 6 through 11. She had also referred me to a lot of other parents, so I was concerned about my jobs. Because her kids behaved badly and didn't do homework, I always spent extra time with them, 5 to 10 minutes per week, because they needed it. But okay, sure. You want me to work that time? No problem. So I decided to tell this mother from now on, I would set a timer and charge every minute on that timer and show her when I clicked it on and off, and gave a huge apology. You can imagine her shock at the end of the 10 weeks when she saw that the kids' combined 30 hours was actually more like 36 to 37 that she had to pay for. She never bothered me about the timing ever again and rushed through every homework or exam prep explanation, getting me out of the door. My sister stole my cat, so now I'm taking her to court. I, 24 female, asked my sister Susan to house sit my house for 2 days and basically make sure my cat was fed. Long story short, Susan claimed my cat ran out the door under her feet and had gotten hit. I grieved and was so depressed for a good week after. I've had my cat for 4 years. The weird thing was, though, that my cat was usually scared of the outside. Fast forward, I asked my sister if I can come by. She makes up some excuse. She did this for 3 days. Finally, I show up unannounced and my niece lets me in, then excitedly asks me, "Want to see our new kitty?" I say sure, and she shows me an exact identical cat of mine. Definitely my cat. I call my cat by its name and she comes running to me. The only difference between the cats were that someone did a horrible job shaving this one's face. It's long-haired. My sister came in yelling that I couldn't just walk into her house, even though I've done it a million times before. I told her I wanted my cat back, and she denied it being mine. I went home and did a lot of research and was looking into lawyers and evidence that I needed. I then texted my sister today. I lied and said that I had a lawyer and I would be taking her to court for stealing my cat. She sent me an angry text back about how if I took her to court, I'd be a horrible sister, and she has kids to think of and I don't, and that my lovable cat made her want to get one. Blah, blah, blah. The kids love their new cat. I told her I don't care. She told me I was acting crazy over a cat and how she'll never forgive me. I'm not delusional. The cat was identical to mine, came directly to its name. I love the cat like it's my kid. My sister has done messed up things to me in the past, but I never thought she would do something like this. Am I the jerk? Did you have your cat chipped? That would be all the proof you need. Anyone who owns a cat or a dog and does not have them chipped is making a big mistake. Not the jerk. Go back to your sister's house and retrieve your cat. What's she going to do? Call the police? They have better things to worry about these days. You may want to pay a lawyer a small sum to write a letter to your sister with enough legal verbiage to scare. I doubt this issue would ever end up in a courtroom. Am I the jerk for leaving a vacation after my girlfriend brought her friends along? My girlfriend, Sarah, who's 29, and I, male 28, have been dating for 5 years, and I wanted to go on a vacation with her to celebrate. I planned the trip for several months. Of course, I shared my plans with her and decided on skiing and snowboarding and other winter activities in Colorado. The activities seemed perfect, and I was looking forward to this for months because I wanted to propose to her at the end of the trip. 5 days before the trip, Sarah dropped the ball on me that she invited 2 of her friends to meet her there. I was upset because I wanted to spend one-on-one time with Sarah for our anniversary. I feel like it was plain and clear that this was a trip just for us. Even though I expressed my concerns, Sarah insisted that her friends already made plans to come and won't back out. I decided to accept this because there was no way for me to force her friends to not come. I wish I fought more on this. I figured we could make some changes to our plans and I would still be able to propose to her privately. Sarah essentially blew me off for her friends and we didn't get any private time. After 3 days of being in second place, I decided to leave the trip and head home. I told Sarah why I was leaving and she was upset. She told her friends about my decision and I was ganged up on. They said we were all having a great time. She thinks I'm being a jerk for making her pick between her friends and me, even though her friends weren't invited in the first place. I never had personal issues with her friends prior to this trip. I never made Sarah pick between me or her friends because everyone needs friends outside of a relationship. I'm at home now and thinking about everything. I have a day to myself before Sarah comes home, so at least I get to relax a bit. Sarah and her friends think I'm overreacting and think that I ruined the trip. I think Sarah was disrespectful and rude to me by ruining the purpose of the trip and having her friends gang up on me. Am I the jerk for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? Edit. This was a planned anniversary romantic trip. I was clear that we have plans just for us two. We've been on other anniversary trips together without her friends there. We did discuss marriage beforehand, so it's not like a proposal would have been out of the blue. Minor update. My friends are here at the house and they've been running potential interference, just in case her friends try to bombard and harass me. They've been great and I'm so glad to have them. Minor update too. None of Sarah's friends came by the house or harassed me yesterday or last night, which is good. Sarah hasn't come home yet. I figured out what I want to say and I have it written out. Not the jerk. You sure you still want to propose? This. Even if it wasn't a proposal trip, it was so disrespectful of Sarah to basically pull the rug out from under him and get her friends to gang up on him. To do that to someone you've dated for 5 years? Jeez. I would sit her down and go through the plans you had, including the proposal. Watch the Pikachu face and then tell her you need time apart to evaluate this relationship. So let me get this straight. 1. You spent months planning on a vacation for the 2 of you. 2. You paid for this vacation. 3. She invited her friends and didn't tell you until it was too late for them to cancel. And 4. You made requests for alone time and she rebuffed those efforts to hang out as a group with her friends. Buddy, she found the ring and knew your plan for the weekend. Not the jerk. Might want to consider planning for a different future. Not the jerk. If y'all are still speaking, when she comes back from the trip, tell her you didn't ruin her good time and you didn't embarrass her in front of her friends. Seems if she's as serious about this relationship as you are, she should be able to understand your position. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I think this is what the Reddit folks like to call marinara flags.
My son can't attend your child-free wedding? Okay then, you tell him. I'm 31, male. My son is 5 years old. About a year ago, my brother, who's 34, reassured my son that he could be the ring bearer at his wedding. This conversation occurred after he heard us talking about mine and his dad's wedding and was very offended that he wasn't invited, despite the fact that he wouldn't be conceived for another 3 years after the event. My son really latched onto this comment. Now, all these months later, my brother has proposed and is planning a wedding with his fiancée. When I told my son that his uncle was getting married, he was obviously overjoyed and immediately launched into bragging to his younger brother, who wasn't born when the initial conversation took place and was just giving him typical baby babbles in return, that he got to be the ring bearer. I heard the proposal news from my mom, and when I called to congratulate my brother, I also told him the story of how excited our oldest is. My brother went on to tell me that his fiancée is pretty adamant about a child-free wedding, so the promise he made might not be doable anymore. This was obviously hard for me to hear. Not only would this break my son's heart, this would also make mine and my husband's lives considerably harder. We're currently living abroad and didn't think we would have to find childcare for the time of the wedding. Our only options now would be fly with our kids and leave them in the care of people we don't fully trust, since all trusted family members will be attending the ceremony. 2. Leave both of the kids with a trusted friend near our home and fly to the wedding. Not ideal, since thanks to flexible work schedules, we were planning to spend a month with our families following the wedding. Flying in for the celebration, flying home to pick up our kids, and then flying back is too exhausting. Them flying alone is obviously not an option. Or 3, not attend. My brother said he would try to get his fiancée to reconsider, but we spoke 2 nights ago, and he said she's putting her foot down. Admittedly, I was hurt over this on my son's behalf. I told him we would still try to make it, but it was unlikely that we could. I also told him that if he even wanted us to consider coming, he would have to tell his nephew himself that he was going back on his promise and why. My brother said it felt like I was issuing him an ultimatum and making him choose between family and his wife on what's supposed to be the happiest day of his life, and that I was being unfair. I said he shouldn't have made promises that he couldn't keep. Am I the jerk? ETA. Saw some confusion in the comments. I'm a man. Not the jerk. I think you summed it up beautifully. Your brother made a promise that got your kid all hyped up, and now he wants someone else to deal with the emotional fallout when he reneges, because it would be inconvenient for him to deal with it himself. That's a jerk move right there. Yeah, I honestly thought this was going to be OP being the jerk because it's up to parents to explain stuff like this, unless you've made a promise to the kid that they're really excited about. I imagine the brother completely forgot about the promise, but now that he's been reminded, he kinda has to explain and apologize. Kids latch on to things, and it can be annoying, but in this case, he needs to explain so that the kid doesn't latch on to hating his uncle. Not the jerk. Your brother put you into a difficult position. Kids 101. Don't promise them stuff because they can forget it, but they can also remember it forever, and it's 50-50. If I were you, I'd skip their wedding. You and your husband can have a vows renewal ceremony instead, with 2 ring bearers. Do something cute. Invite friends and family that are close. Excuse yourself from brother's wedding, explaining the situation to your family. Break it on purpose? Sure, we'll replace it. I was recently reminded of this story, even though it took place approximately 10 years ago. Background. I worked at a GameStop when GameStop was still pretty hot. At that point in time, we were forced to ask people if they wanted to buy a small insurance on every disc we sold. It covered all damage. If people came back with a disc with insurance, we replaced it, no questions asked. Scene. It's like 20 minutes till close on a weeknight. I'm doing as much close prep as I can get away with when Jerk and his friends enter the store. Obviously bored and just wasting time, but since I'm alone in the store, I greet them and let them look around for a bit. Jerk brings up a game to the desk and I ring him up. Would you like to buy insurance on this game? We cover all damages. In a split second, he lights up like he just had the most genius idea in the world. All damage? Even if I break it myself? Like, on purpose? Yeah, I can see clear as day where this is going, and so can his friends who start chuckling. I play along. Me. Yep, All damage, no matter what. No questions asked. He buys the insurance. I bag it and hand it to him, and they walk literally just out of the store before stopping. D pulls out the game, takes out the disc, and looks me straight in the eye while he snaps it in half. His friends are dying from laughing. I just smile politely. So he walks back in, hands me the game, and goes, "This is broken. I'd like a new one." Cue malicious compliance. See, our system would warn us in the corner of the screen if we sold the last copy of something. That disc was the last one we had in the store. Me. Of course. Unfortunately, I do not have any more copies in store, so I have to have it shipped from one of our other locations. They close in 5 minutes though, as we did. But I will leave a note for the manager to put in a transfer order. It should be here in 3 to 5 work days. If you write your number here, we can call you when it arrives. His friends are wheezing from laughing at this point because it becomes obvious that Jerk totally played himself and now has to wait a week for his game. Lesson: be nice to retail workers. Warning and advice from a lifer. I have over 20 years of experience working in every kind of restaurant and have some advice and warnings for those thinking of a career or trying to move up in the industry. I started at Ruby Tuesdays at 19. The money was great, but I loved the lifestyle. We partied every night and worked every day. I did this for about 4 years until I was fired. Why was I fired? New management came in and cleaned house. All 10 of us were let go for BS reasons. This was a wake-up call. I realized servers could be fired at any time for any reason. I was devastated. Luckily, I found another job relatively quickly, Longhorn Steakhouse. This job was less fun, but the money was about 15 to 20% better. I decided to learn what it takes to work in fine dining to make as much money as possible. I talked with management about moving to a high-end restaurant in the same company, the Capitol Grill. They promised me if my sales were up and I was studying food and wine, they would transfer me. For the next year and a half, I studied and became the lead server. A friend of mine who was in upper management of Longhorn had informed me that they don't transfer servers, and I never had a shot, even though my store managers promised me they would. Again, I was devastated. One Friday night, one of the managers pulled me into the office to yell at me about a secret shopper. I did everything right, but did not upsell cheese fries. She was going off. I was in shock. I knew my sales were much higher than everyone's, and at this point, I had 4 tables that needed my attention. I had had enough. Longhorn was never going to promote me, and by this point, I knew how easy it was to get another job. She asked me how I was going to rectify the issue, as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. I told her I wasn't, and I immediately quit. Now she was in shock. She knew I was her strongest server and tried to backtrack. I had never quit a job before, and it felt good. I went to the door, asked my tables to cash out, and let them know what had just happened. All my tables did, and way overtipped me. At this point, the manager was fuming and said I would never work in the industry again. At this point, I decided it was time to apply to some fine dining restaurants. My first choice was the best restaurant in the area, Sky. They were trendy and had actual chefs and a crazy wine list. I got an interview, and the GM first asked me if I had experience in fine dining. I told him no, but I had been studying food and wine for the last year and a half, and I promised I would work hard and do what it took to prove myself. So he took a chance with me. Within a year, I was the head server. My PPA, per person average, was higher than anyone. Management loved me, and so did the owner. I took this job very seriously. I had regulars that were worth millions, if not billions of dollars. I had worked at Sky for several years, making more money than I ever had. Then our GM leaves, and 2 managers get transferred to sister restaurants. We get a new GM, and he brings in his friends to manage and starts to clean house. Several servers were let go for no reason. I fear I might be fired too. The new servers he brought in were horrible. They were sloppy and lazy, and their PPA was the lowest. Yet, they were given bigger sections and better shifts. This upset everyone, myself included. One night after my shift, I tried and calmly talked with the new GM about how this affected our money and asked if there was a fair way to schedule. He exploded on me. I was shocked. I profusely apologized. I meant no disrespect, but he had heard enough and fired me on the spot. Again, I was devastated. 2 days passed, and the restaurant owner called me up, apologizing and wanting me to return. I told him what had happened, how the GM spoke to me, and how he was cutting our shifts to make room for his friends. I asked the owner to look at the numbers and asked him who he would rather have representing his company. The owner agreed he would rather have me than the questionable new hires. I explained this situation had left a bad taste in my mouth and I wasn't sure I wanted to return. He offered me $15 an hour plus the tips I would make if I returned instead of the standard $5 server wage. I decided to accept and returned to work a few days later. For the first time in my serving career, I experienced a power shift. As soon as I walk in, I'm summoned to the office. The GM is sitting behind his desk and he looks upset. He said the way I spoke to him and went behind his back was unforgivable. I again calmly explained what happened and reminded him that he fired me. He said I should have dealt with the consequences like a man. He said some things would be changing. My shift would be cut and I would be put on a trial run to see if I could come back. I cut him off and said, "No, I won't. I will work my regular schedule with a fair section. If he doesn't like it, he can talk to his boss, the owner." I thought the guy was going to start swinging. I have never seen someone so angry. He screams at me to get out of his office. I start taking tables and working my shift, and the GM comes on the floor while I'm at the table and pulls me by my arm to go to his office. This shocks the guests and me. The owner is in the GM's chair, and I sit next to the GM. The GM immediately starts laying into me, saying I'm a colossal problem. I calmly explained I had guests I was taking care of at the moment and asked if it would be possible to continue this conversation once my section was empty. The GM says no. The owner disagreed and said yes, we would talk after my shift. As I'm working my shift, I see every manager and chef go into the office to talk with the owner. They talked for a while. Once my section was empty, I knocked on the door and said I was ready to talk whenever they were. I change out of my uniform and I'm summoned to come back to the office. I'm sure I'll be let go for some random reason. As soon as I sit, the GM looks nervous but is still furious with me. The owner says we must squash this little beef and return to business. I agree, but the GM interjects and says I'm a huge problem. The owner says he's talked with everyone and no one has a problem with me. He says my sales are the highest and he has no guest complaints. The GM then went on about how I questioned his authority. I calmly explained if I couldn't make money here, I couldn't work here. We had already lost 3 strong servers the last month due to them quitting, and he fired a few other people. The owner had heard enough. He told the GM to give me whatever shifts I wanted and change his attitude. I was told I could leave and to close the door. As I left, I could hear the owner screaming at the GM that he should fire him. I went home, but another server told me they were in the office for an hour and the owner was going off. The next couple of months were rocky. The GM wouldn't even look at me. One day I heard the GM and the new servers were fired. They were all stealing. About a year later, I left on good terms due to moving. I got another fine dining job and studied under a master wine steward and James Beard award-winning chefs. Unfortunately, that restaurant closed and now I'm at another fine dining job. It's a good company and the money is excellent. I get whatever hours I want and I'm respected. I hope my story saves you some time and aggravation. I'll list some bullet points below so that I can help you. 1. If you know you will serve for a few years, apply to fine dining restaurants. Even if you don't think you're qualified, the difference in money is enormous. 2. Don't use things you shouldn't be using. I've witnessed many servers go down that path, which always ends badly. 3. Management will almost always try and take advantage of you. They will throw you under the bus in a second if it makes them look good. 4. There is no job security in this business. Even if management loves you, managers come and go, and you might have a nightmare boss next week. 5. Always have a backup plan. I only work 2 or 3 days a week and do my own business on the side. Remember, no job security. If the restaurant is going under, they won't tell you. They will lock the doors. 6. Doing this job full-time will fundamentally damage you. Fake smiling and pretending will lead you to feel horrible after a while. You have thoughts, dreams, and feelings, and you are entitled to them. Extra onions. This happened years ago. I was working at a McDonald's on a highway rest stop as a teenager over the summer. I was making the burgers in the back when a belligerent customer came up and ordered a cheeseburger with extra onions. He made sure to emphasize, "I want extra onions," loudly and repeatedly, and banged his fist on the counter because last time he ordered extra onions, there weren't enough onions on it. My manager overheard the order as well because the customer was being loud and rude to the cashier. I looked over at my manager and he gave me the nod. He knew what I had in mind and that he would have my back. Cue malicious compliance. Standard cheeseburgers are supposed to have a little sprinkle of this diced onion mix. I proceeded to pile on about a cup of diced onions on top of the burger. To keep it from spilling off the burger, I alternated a slice of cheese between 1/2 inch thick onion layers. So a total 1.5 inch thick layer of diced onion and cheese ended up on this burger along with the other toppings. I microwaved it so the melted cheese fused with the onions to keep it all together as best as possible. Wrapped it up carefully and put it out for the cashier to pick up. It was as tall as a Big Mac and weighed 3 times as much as a normal cheeseburger. The cashier picked it up and her eyes grew wide as she hesitantly bagged it, glanced at the manager as he waved her on, and walked back to the register. The customer snapped the bag out of her hand and says, "This better have extra onions on it or I'll be back." We watched the guy grab his condiments and napkins and he heads to the seating area, so the manager stayed at the counter waiting for any blowback. It wasn't busy, so we sent a staff member to go check on the napkin section that was near the guy to see his reaction as he opened up his onion burger. Sure enough, he unwraps the burger, looks at it inquisitively as onions and cheese spill out the sides, does a little nod and smirk like this was exactly what he was looking for, and takes a huge bite out of it. Chews a couple times. His eyes then go wide and he realizes his mistake and immediately spits it out onto the tray. He sits there sheepishly for a few moments with an embarrassed look on his face while he inspects the burger more closely, and you can see him ponder the next move while he drinks his soda and munches on fries. He tries scraping off some of the onions onto the wrapper, but the cheese and other toppings are coming with it, basically left with a plain burger and bun. He tries unsuccessfully to reassemble the burger with less onion and some of the other toppings, but it was a big pile of onion, ketchup, mustard, cheese with a single pickle. He takes another bite, then throws it down on the tray in disgust. He finishes his fries, tosses the burger in the trash, and we watch him leave in embarrassment. He doesn't even glance back to the counter on his way out. Am I the jerk for throwing away cookies given to us by my mother-in-law? It was technically one cookie. Here's what happened. My husband's mother baked cookies and gave us 5 more to take home. My son ate 2 of the 5, leaving 3 cookies left. My husband ate a lot at my mother-in-law's house before we left the same day. Now I've been trying to lose baby weight from our most recent baby, and as such we have a rule. No sweets in the house. I have a binging problem, and thus if we do want sweets, we usually either make it from scratch or go out to get them when we want them and store them in designated areas in the house. He's free to store his snacks in his office and gaming area, which isn't even on the same floor. We have multiple spots for them that aren't hard to reach. It's just not sitting out in my face all day. I also told him earlier that I was trying not to eat many cookies that day because my progress was slowing down due to us going out to eat a lot. I went out to shop for groceries because I wanted to meal plan, and my husband left the dishes for me to do when I got back. It was over an hour of grocery shopping, and I was tired and hungry when I got back. I started doing the dishes first and opened the cabinet that only stores our cups, and there's 2 darn cookies right there in front of me. I was mad because I had went the entire day eating only 1 cookie, but the reasoning for not having sweets out in the open was clear in that moment because I ate 1 quickly and I was about to start on the other. But I decided to just throw it away because it was the only place of finality. That meant I could not get it later and devour it. My husband came up and I explained that he put the cookie in a terrible spot, and I saw it and almost ate them both. He said good thing I didn't because he wanted the last one, and that's when I said I threw it out. He thinks I'm a jerk for tossing it. I think he was a jerk for putting it in the dumbest location possible, knowing I was going to do the dishes and see it. He literally just had to walk less than 5 steps over to the snack shelf and put it there. I'm on a weight loss journey. We don't leave snacks out in the open because of it, but designated areas. My husband left cookies his mom baked in a cabinet meant only for cups, although knowing I was going to do the dishes, and so I tossed one of them after eating one to prevent myself from eating the other. So, am I the jerk for throwing it away? Edit. Alright, time to move on from reading comments. To those who voted me the jerk, I get it, it's food waste. To the ones calling me a jerk for making my family suffer, fully read my post. Our house has lots of sweets and snacks. In fact, I realized we still have chocolate chip cookies frozen in our freezer. No one is suffering in an inability to indulge themselves when they want to. To those who said not the jerk, thanks. I think everyone deals with food in their own ways. Mine was cemented into my head to be unhealthy at a young age, so here I am, unable to control myself at times. Thanks. You're the jerk. What? Why didn't you move it to the snack shelf for your husband? Seriously, good luck with the weight loss if you have this little self-control. You have to be petty and throw out a home-baked cookie. Jerk move 100%. Food addiction is a hard thing to beat. I've done what OP has done. I've also gone back to the trash to get the thing I wanted so bad that I had thrown it out in the first place, like hours later. Not proud of it. And it wasn't a sealed takeout container, but still nasty, I know. OP set up boundaries with her husband, who presumably does not have food impulse control issues, and he put the cookie in the worst possible place. She's not the jerk for being sick. She just needs more time to work at her issues and a little support from her family. Not the jerk. I think the comments are pretty mean. If OP had a diagnosed eating disorder, would that make it okay for her to have no self-control? She does have self-control because she didn't eat the cookie and tried to create a system that would work for her needs. It was one cookie after everyone had already had plenty, and not that big of a deal, to be honest. Not the jerk. If husband knows OP has a problem with binging, which is disordered eating behavior, then it's also not hard for him to just move the cookie to his office or gaming area or snack shelf if he wanted the last cookie so badly. As a person who also struggles with binging, I'd rather chuck one cookie in the bin to maintain self-control than eat it and trigger a binge. Binging is horrible, and once a cycle begins, it's really hard to get out of. It's literally one cookie. If you wanted a cookie so bad you'd hit the point of anger, knowing someone threw it away to prevent a binge, that makes you a bit weird in my opinion. The You're the Jerks have not experienced binge eating disorder. Throwing away a cookie was a victory, regardless of its origin, rather than triggering a serious binge with larger consequences. A cookie, even one made by dear old mom, is not more important than OP's mental and physical well-being. If it was easy to have willpower and just move on, binge eating disorders wouldn't be a thing. Not the jerk, OP, and well done. I don't care if I'm being downvoted into oblivion. I'm a dude, put on roughly 30 pounds since having kids. If someone puts a treat in front of me, I just eat it. I know it's a shortcoming or something I should do better at. I've had long periods of time where I just don't have any sweets around me, and it's helped me control my weight. But with kids, you end up with all kinds of snacks and treats and crap that I'd otherwise never have around. For someone to not be helpful enough to say, "Oh, good for you for throwing that out instead of eating it." Because let's be clear, your husband was never going to eat that cookie. That was decided when he left it for you in plain sight. Your choice was to eat it or throw it out. Good for you. Keep coming back. It's a really hard thing to combat, and you need people who help. 100%, not the jerk. Edit. Wow, these comments are atrocious. Throwing out a cookie doesn't make someone a jerk. OP, hang in there. You're the jerk. Your poor impulse control isn't everyone else's responsibility. It's great that they're supporting and accommodating, but you need to hold yourself accountable. You didn't eat the cookie you didn't want, and then throw out the other one because of where your husband left them. It wasn't because your willpower was depleted from running an errand and doing a chore. You did it because you have a binge eating problem. You literally had to just not touch the cookies. You need therapy to work on your self-control. Your family shouldn't have to curb themselves because you lack it. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. I have weight issues, so we have a rule about sweets. Sounds like a you problem that's being forced on everyone else. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
Bruh, it's one single cookie. Why are these people so mad she threw out one single cookie? People on Reddit really get worked up over the smallest things.
Mother-in-law buys us a 2-day weekday hotel stay in her city as a Christmas gift. Husband, who's 37, and I, 30, female, live a 9-hour drive away from mother-in-law. No kids. For Christmas, without checking in with us first, she bought us a hotel from Tuesday to Thursday during a random week in the summer. She told us it was a trip for us lovebirds to do whatever we want. Sure, Jan. I started a new job last summer and don't have paid vacation for a year. Government. I also have to have someone watch our 2 dogs while we're away. We're also responsible for paying for our flights as well. So it's a big hit financially for a vacation we didn't want in the first place. Anyway, husband and I were doing some planning for what we're wanting to do. I have family in the area and husband has other family there as well. Mother-in-law finds out and tells us we need to spend the whole trip with her. We were planning on spending all Wednesday with her, but then she goes into a guilt trip about how we never see her. For the record, we saw her last summer and at Christmas. Anyway, she wants to spend Wednesday and Thursday with us and is now saying the trip was for her to spend time with us. Duh. But we fly in Tuesday night and fly out Friday morning, only flights available, which means I won't be able to see my family unless I extend our trip, and expenses. I got 10 text messages at midnight, 11 p.m. her time, last night about why we need to focus on her for the trip. She has surgery. Not while we're there, but later in the summer for a shoulder injury. She doesn't get time off besides this. She can't travel, etc. Her tone was rude, and she's never talked to me like that before. Today, she told my husband she wants to sell her house so she can contribute to a down payment on a home we're saving for. We told her we don't want to talk about that until the summer. How do we put an end to the generosity that is actually leveraged to control our behavior? Is there a way to gently shut her down? She doesn't listen and isn't interested in our opinions or perspective and doesn't respect boundaries. Please help me. Nope, nope, and nope. Selling her house to help with your down payment equals moving in because she has nowhere to live and she helped pay for it. And don't accept that hotel. It's too much out of pocket to be forced to maintain someone else's itinerary. Next time she gives you a gift, tell her you hope it's refundable because it doesn't work for you. When she brings up the house, no thank you, we'll be buying our own home. Invite your family on the days you're in town. Just because she's forcing you to visit her doesn't mean you have to play her game fully. Hubby really needs to tell her this doesn't work for you and give her boundaries. My jealous wife demands I fire the new nanny because they were enemies back in high school. I, male 30s, live with my wife, who's in her 30s as well. We both work full-time jobs and we have 3 kids, who are 3, 6, and 7. I used to work from home with flexible hours, but I've been offered a promotion which requires me to go to work in person. The pay increase is really significant, so my wife and I agreed I should take the promotion and hire a part-time nanny for our kids. I got in touch with a nanny agency and they matched us up to someone who lives local. They only told us her first name, which was a really common name anyway. But for the sake of storytelling, we'll call her Sarah. I spoke to Sarah on the phone and she seemed really nice. We arranged a day for her to come over and meet my wife and the kids and for us to show her around the house. When the day came around and we met her, it turned out that my wife already knew Sarah. It was really awkward. I wasn't sure how they knew each other until afterwards. My wife told me that back when she was in high school, her boyfriend at the time cheated on her with Sarah, who was in her class. She wasn't enthusiastic about it, but my wife didn't seem to have a problem with Sarah being our nanny at first. Our kids love her, she has lots of experience, and she's available when we need her. After a couple of weeks, with pretty much no issues, my 2 oldest kids came to me and started telling me that they don't want Sarah to come back. I asked them why, and they said that she's evil. I ask what they think she's evil for, and my 6-year-old starts crying and says that Sarah is mean and wants to hurt mommy. I talked to my wife in private, and at first she said she had no idea what the kids were talking about and that it must be because of something that Sarah did. When I pressed it, my wife admitted that she told the kids that Sarah was evil. She said she knows it was a ridiculous plan, but she was hoping that I'd fire her. My wife asked me to fire the nanny because their history makes her uncomfortable. I asked why it wasn't an issue before, and my wife said she just needed to think about it and she's decided Sarah has to go. I told my wife that we can find another nanny, but until then, there's no reason to get rid of Sarah, and that she was out of line for trying to weaponize the kids against her when Sarah is no danger to anyone. My wife disagreed and said that we need to just fire Sarah ASAP and hire a temporary babysitter until we can find another nanny. She said that she wasn't weaponizing the kids, she was just setting boundaries. This turned into a really heated argument, and I called my wife insecure and controlling and told her that she needs to go to therapy. My wife said I'm being inconsiderate of her feelings and I need to put myself in her shoes. This was one of our biggest arguments in a very long time, and I just want a neutral opinion on whether or not I was wrong. Everyone sucks here. Your wife shouldn't be talking smack about Sarah to your kids, but you also shouldn't be insisting that Sarah remain hired. There are plenty of other people who I'm sure would be equally as nice and fun as Sarah, with the added bonus that this one won't have painful beef with your wife. Everyone sucks here. OP, this is just ridiculous. Your wife was way out of line to say to the kids and try to use them like that, and it sounds like she did some actual, hopefully just temporary, emotional damage in doing so. But she's right that Sarah needs to go, immediately. Why the heck would you want to keep your wife in a clearly uncomfortable position, much less continue to keep your kids in this situation? Keeping Sarah around for a couple more weeks just because you don't want to bother finding someone to fill in until you and your wife find a permanent replacement is a terrible idea, and it shows your wife and your kids that you don't give a hoot about their feelings. Save your kids and your marriage, and Sarah, frankly, any more of this dealing with crap. Everyone sucks here. Your wife got cheated on by her ex with the woman who is in your lives and in your kids' lives. The sensible thing to do would have been to say right away, okay, we'll find someone else. You are being inconsiderate of her feelings. That makes you a jerk. Your wife should have never used your kids the way that she did. That was beyond the pale. That makes her a jerk. All in all, it means you all suck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Here's an idea. How about OP's wife tells the kids that she lied to them about Sarah?
You need to think long and hard about whether you want this job? Okay. Context. I work in IT in a very small area where everybody knows each other in one way or another, so networking with people is very important. I got a new job in a private school, partly because I knew the consultant acting as hiring manager at the time, but also because he knew I had skills in Azure and its many cloud components, which was the direction he envisioned the school going. Great stuff. I can do the migration no problem, as I've gone through it twice at previous companies. I started just before the summer holidays, which were 9 weeks at this school, so I spent a bit of time getting to grips with the equipment, network, and just generally settling in. It was a small team of myself, 2 desktop guys, 1 part-time, and the consultant and manager, who worked 3 part days, usually 10 a.m. to 2 or 3 p.m. After about 3 months, the school hired a permanent manager and dropped the consultant after he had handed over all of his responsibilities. Things continued as normal. I worked away on getting the prerequisites in place while juggling some other projects, like managed printing and network upgrades. Everything seemed great, although I was being pulled away from my cloud tasks more than I'd like, but figured it was just how things were here with such a small team. Jump forward to December. My 6-month probation was done, so I asked the manager, let's call her D, when we could have a meeting to discuss how things have been and sign off on my probation. She kept putting it off with generic excuses, and it ended up happening in mid-January when she absolutely destroyed me. Instead of talking to me like a reasonable human being, she held up all these microaggressions and spent over 30 minutes unloading them onto me, absolutely crushing my motivation. She also said she doesn't believe the cloud is the right way to go and that I needed to be better at on-premise infrastructure and networking. I had specifically said during my interviews that networking is my weakest area and that I specialize in cloud computing. So essentially, the role I'm supposed to be doing has changed entirely to one that I'm not good at. She's used this as a way to suggest extending my probation while she creates a new role for me that's more fitting, as I don't have the networking skills she's looking for. I was visibly upset and she left me for a minute, but just before she left, she said,
You need to think long and hard about if you want this job, because right now you're not performing well enough to keep it.
I sat there for about 20 minutes, alone in a side room near our office. Thoughts went through my head, doubting myself, worrying about losing my apartment I bought just 6 months ago if I lost this job, worrying what my family would think, and just generally how I'd deal with what I felt like was an inevitability. I tried my best with everything I did, and she still wasn't happy. So I thought about what she said. Do I want this job? No. So that night, I signed up with all the local job agencies, frequently checked job sites, and all the time I was at work, I acted like she had helped me see my errors and that I was working on them to prove myself to her. Actually, I couldn't stand her, and I couldn't stand being in the same room as her. I hadn't taken any of my annual leave days as I had no money after spending all my savings on my apartment, so I didn't see the point in taking time off to sit around. She nagged me about this constantly, saying I'd lose it if it weren't taken, blah blah blah, like I didn't already know how holidays work. I booked a big block of 3 weeks at the end of May as we had family coming to visit. This is relevant later. About 2 months later, I booked a couple days holiday to attend an interview. Obviously, I just told her I fancied a long weekend. I got the job. Not only was it more engaging and relevant to my areas of expertise, but it was a tasty $7,000 pay raise with a bonus scheme up to 25% annually. Sweet. I come back in on Monday, ready to hand my notice in, but she's booked a meeting with me while I was off for 10 a.m. to discuss my new role. I have my notice in an envelope, and I bring that to the meeting. She starts with pretty much saying,
You've gotten a bit better, but still not good enough for this job. So I'd like to propose.
I cut her off and I hand her the envelope. She opens it, reads it, and says,
Oh, okay. Huh.
she says,
Well, your notice period is a month, so your final day will be the 8th of June.
I counter with, actually, I think you'll find that while on my probation period, it's actually only 2 weeks, which brings it to the 25th of May, which is also a public holiday, as is the 24th, so my last day is actually the 23rd of May. She tries to say that I'd passed probation, but I remind her of the letter I signed agreeing to the extension and that I hadn't signed any contract for this new role yet. A bit of back and forth, and she finally concedes. I also remind her that I had almost the entirety of my annual leave, which has to be paid to me when I leave, as my finish date was before they were to be taken. As the school was going through a big cost-saving exercise, this would look really bad on her. She asked me to take them instead of working my notice, which I declined. I'd rather tolerate her for 8 more days and get paid for a full month's pay on top of my normal salary. She reluctantly agreed and said she's going to talk to HR and let them know. On the way out of the meeting, I thanked her for helping me out in January. She looked at me confused, so I reminded her that I needed to think long and hard about whether I wanted this job, and I decided that no, I didn't, and I found a much better package elsewhere. Now I have my own office, complete with coffee machine and mini fridge, staff who work with me on projects, and time to work on Azure features like I'm supposed to, all while getting paid considerably more. Thanks, Dee. P.S. She got the boot 3 months after I left. Apparently, she clashed with a lot of the teaching staff with her management style. Guess I wasn't the only one who didn't get along with her. Am I the jerk for wanting to spend time with my wife instead of babysitting my little sister? I, 24 male, and my wife recently had our 5-year anniversary. We had planned to go to a nice restaurant, then ride in a hot air balloon, and then go to a lake and relax. I was going to buy her flowers and all. Then out of the blue, one day before our anniversary, I get a text from my mom demanding me to babysit my sister for a week, while she and my dad go visit my aunt who recently got diagnosed with leukemia. Now, I love my sister. We're 18 years apart, but are still closer than ever. She has a bit of a mental challenge, but otherwise is a pretty normal kid. I was debating whether to say yes, but I didn't want a kid in tow while I was having a date with my wife. So I politely declined and didn't get an answer, so I thought it was okay. The next day, we're at the restaurant when my phone starts buzzing like crazy. I check it, and it's filled with texts from my mom and dad. They're calling me all sorts of names and saying that they showed up at my house only for it to be empty. Now they're ignoring me. When I write to them, I haven't gotten an answer. Am I the jerk? Edit. My wife and I also have to work for more than half of those days. Me and my wife have known each other since we were kids and started dating when we were teenagers. My sister is currently staying with a family friend who we've known all of our lives. The friend has 2 kids who are very close to my sister. The family friend said she wouldn't mind keeping her for the week as she gets a break from her twins and encouraged me to relax. Edit. My aunt is not in critical condition. She's doing fine. She also lives far away, and it takes a couple of hours to get to her. 3 hours and a little more due to stops and other things, so it takes about 4 to 5 hours probably. Update. I have gone over to the friend's house and gotten them food for the kind gesture. I can clearly see that my sister enjoys the twins' company and the friend doesn't work, so I intend to keep her there. However, the friend informed me that my parents were talking bad about me and my wife in her messages. She told me that they were berating me for being a bad son and that my wife probably convinced me to stay away from an important situation. I intend to speak to them about this once they get back. I don't want to intrude when my aunt has leukemia. Not the jerk. You had plans. You politely declined, with notice. You are not your sister's keeper. It's on them to find a sitter, and they had plenty of time to do so, but they failed to do that. I hope you had a lovely anniversary in spite of it all. Edit. Even with the info that your aunt was diagnosed with leukemia, you're not the jerk. It was still on them to either make other plans or communicate with you at all, rather than making demands. If they chose to go just one day later, then you could have decided if you'd be willing to keep your sister for a week. There were workarounds and other options. They just chose to ignore all of them. OP politely declined, and yet they still showed up at the house? And they're calling him all sorts of names? To me, this is proof that they didn't want him to babysit the sister. They were looking to dump the sister off, regardless of what measures they had to go to accomplish it. Not the jerk by a long shot. By all means, taste your words. I used to work as a food receiver in a retirement home kitchen. I won't say the name, but I will say it sounds vaguely Nordic. When I took over as food receiver in the primary kitchen, didn't have much training. I was just told, "You helped the previous guy. You know the most. Job is yours now." Over the next almost 8 years, got that place maximized for peak use of space. Every now and then we would get a new head chef, and they always made the mistake of trying to run it like a restaurant. Usually in about 2 weeks, they'd realize that it was a different vibe and tone and adjust accordingly. Had a great head chef as a boss for about 5 years. He knew that since deliveries were food and to some degree perishable, my schedule needed to be a little fluid and flexible to account for late deliveries while not having me rack up overtime. We worked out a great system where I basically set my own hours and got everything done. Fast forward to a regime change. Head chef was a tool, but with him came a woman whose job title was never told to any of us in the kitchen. We were just told she outranked all of us. First thing she did was decide I would no longer have a fluid schedule. My shifts would be posted on the board like all the others, 2 weeks in advance. I didn't like it, but okay, fair enough. Cut to about 2 weeks later. I had to leave early for a dentist appointment that had been submitted and approved months ago. I reminded her the day before and the day of. Day after, she gives me a dressing down and a written reprimand for leaving before end of scheduled shift. She told me she didn't care what happened before. She never had papers for this request. Luckily for me, the head of the entire dining department, even above head chef, told her that she had been given all of those time off approved papers when she started, and if my shift didn't reflect my pre-approved leaving early, it was her fault for not paying attention. Unluckily, she decided to take it out on me, saying that, "From now on, once schedule is posted, no changes unless it's in writing and signed by both of us, minimum of 2 days prior. No exceptions." I looked at the calendar and saw I'd get to have fun and get payback. See, being a food receiver, a monthly job of mine was to do end-of-month inventory on all food, beverage, cleaning items. I had actually created the inventory paperwork myself, so instead of being alphabetical, the items were all listed together based on which area they were in. Dishwasher, chemical closet, freezer, dry food storage, soda syrup room, etc. Meaning after a few months, I could go room to room quickly and be done in less than 2 hours. Catch was, it had to be done either last thing, last day of a month, or first thing, first day of a month, and could not do 2 in the same month, with no weekend deliveries. I worked Monday through Friday. Now, under the old cool-headed chef, if I had to do it on a Saturday or Sunday, I'd just come in and do it, then leave early on a slow day, canceling extra hours. And lo and behold, this was one of those months, where inventory would have to be done on a Saturday or Sunday. Days she had me down as off on the calendar. I grinned like Tim Curry in The Grinch or in Home Alone 2, and I waited. Sure enough, last Friday of the month, she asks me, "Which day are you coming in to do inventory?" I told her I wasn't. I was scheduled off. She goes into a tirade about, "It's your job. You don't tell me no. I'll have you written up," etc. I calmly told her making the schedule was her job and responsibility, not mine. This earned me, "I don't care what the schedule says. You're coming in this weekend." To which I sweetly and sarcastically asked if she had a paper signed by both of us and dated no later than yesterday about us agreeing to this switch. "You know," I said, "the policy you created when you got called out by head office for not properly handling my scheduled early shift?" If smartphones had been common around 2009, I would have taken a picture of her face. I found out from Weekend Crew it took her almost an entire day to do it herself. That was the first of many times she found out that fun way that about half the tasks I did under old regime were technically not required by my work position. I just did them when I had extra time to help a boss that I respected. Am I the jerk for not telling my brother how much something was worth until he re-gifted it to me? I had a boomer great aunt that was a wonderful and lovely woman. She grew up in Eastern Europe right after World War II. One of the weird things about her was that she would just give her old belongings as gifts for weddings and important birthdays. I still have the music box she gave me for my first communion. When we saw family, I would always ask to see their pieces. A few of my aunts had them displayed in china cabinets or out somewhere safe. A few had them collecting dust in a box. I made sure they knew that if the day ever came that they wanted to downsize or something, I would appreciate a chance to grab it for my collection. Some of my cousins took me up on the offer, and I ended up with 6 extra pieces for my room. When I moved out, I made sure that every single part of my collection was safely wrapped and packed. They are my little treasures. I know it's weird. Sorry for being so long-winded, I just love talking about that stuff. I'm about 15 years younger than my eldest brother, and he knows about my collection. When he got married, I was 14. At his gift opening, I saw he got one of her usual gifts. I also saw his wife's face. She was not super grateful. I made sure he knew that I thought it was beautiful, but I didn't ask him to think of me if he wanted to get rid of it. I thought he might like to pass it on to his kid one day. When my aunt passed, she left me the last of her collection, 3 pieces that were a set. I got married last September. My niece, his daughter, was my flower girl. At my gift opening, I could almost hear him giggle when I opened my gift from them. It was the piece from our great aunt. He thought it was super funny. Then he gave us our real gift from our registry. I thanked him profusely for both. He came over the other day and saw my collection in my china cabinet that I inherited. He asked why I was so fascinated with this stuff. I told him that I thought it was amazing and that lots of people collected it. He called BS and started looking it up. The figurine he gave me is worth about $6,700. He said that I was a jerk for not telling him what it was worth. He wants it back. I said that my husband and I were going to give back every piece I got from family as a gift for a special occasion. I already planned to give that piece to my niece for her first communion, along with a little booklet of information about my aunt and the value of the piece so they appreciate it. I know exactly who I got each piece from, and they're all going back to that family. He says I'm being mean accepting a gift from him that's worth so much. I asked him if he ever bothered looking up the value of what he was giving me. He said he thought it was like precious moments or Hummel. Whatever. I have family treasures to keep safe for the next generation. I know I would have gotten something awesome from my great aunt if she hadn't passed before my wedding. Not the jerk. He only wanted it when he found out it has monetary value. You want it for its sentimental value and to pass it on to his daughter. Very sweet of you, really. Not the jerk. You're doing something so thoughtful for your family, maintaining some of your history to pass down to the next generation. Your brother is a bit of a jerk asking for a gift back, but seriously, your great aunt would love that you cherish her gifts like this. Want us to look for problems to repair? Okay, if you insist. This happened when I worked at the post office years ago. I was one of about 40 mechanics and electronic technicians on the 3 p.m. to 11:30 shift, whose job it was to fix the machines used to process mail. It was a huge facility with thousands of people working there. This may not seem believable today, but first-class mail had to be received, processed, and shipped out within 24 hours. Letters and packages start arriving in the afternoon. Sack of letters and packages are placed on conveyor belts, stamped mail is canceled, all mail is sorted on machines, placed in trays for shipment to their destination, and placed on trucks for shipment directly to the destination post office or the airport. Mail comes between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. and went out around 5 a.m. Up to 2.5 million stamped letters per day during Christmas, but usually around 600,000, plus metered mail and parcels every weekday. Our job was basically to sit around, wait for something to break, and fix it ASAP so it would run to the end of the shift. The day shift could do a more permanent fix if necessary. That was our job. Wait for some machinery to break and fix it. We sat in small groups near our machines and read, gossiped, or did whatever. One day, some bigwig saw us and didn't like us sitting around doing nothing. Word came from on high, and we were told to patrol our areas and fix the broken equipment. Our chairs were taken away so we could not sit down. Now comes the malicious compliance. We did as we were told. We patrolled the building. If anyone saw something broken, we shut down the equipment and fixed it. According to safety regulations, we were required to lock out the power source with our individual padlocks and rope off the area. Hey, you 50 clerks, you need to move from under this conveyor belt so we can replace it. Of course, that disables part of the 6-mile-long system, so productivity is lost. Letter sorting machines with 14 clerks are shut down for minor repairs. Stamp canceling machines? The same. Productivity slumped, and hundreds of clerks were required to work overtime that night and morning to make up for equipment being shut down for repairs. I'm sure the first night it cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime. After 3 days, our chairs returned, and it was business as usual. I gave my daughter a McDonald's application when she was behaving like a brat. First world problems alert. Our daughter recently turned 16. For her birthday, she was getting a vehicle. She had been learning to drive with my 2010 Nissan Titan while she held her permit. I was gifting her the truck. It was twofold, actually. I had been wanting to get a Silverado. She needed a vehicle. The day before her birthday, I had the truck professionally detailed in and out. I take the utmost care of my vehicles, both cosmetically and mechanically. The truck looks brand new practically. On her birthday, I took her to the DMV. She thought we were there to do her road test and get her license. After she passed, I pulled the Titan's title out and said, "Happy birthday." That's when she pretty much made an embarrassing scene because, "OMG, I'm not driving a grandpa truck, Dad." I'm 39 for the record. She threw a tantrum because she wanted a blue Jeep Wrangler. We walked out momentarily to speak. I wanted her to know exactly how rude her behavior was when her father was giving her a truck that any other 16-year-old would be extremely grateful for. Eventually, she apologized, but we had another hiccup when I told her she'll get full access to it when I get another truck, which was already in the works. I was just waiting on the bank to close the loan. Ultimately, I told her to forget it. She was just acting like a spoiled brat. Later that night, I suppose she thought about her behavior as she began asking questions, then said she realized how immature she acted. She asks, "So, since you were going to sign it over to me, does that mean I could drive it for a bit, sell it, and then put the money towards a Wrangler?" My response was, "Of course you could have. By me signing the vehicle over to you, it was officially yours to do what you'd like with it." She says, "Oh, okay. Well, I've thought about it, and I would like to have it." Nope, doesn't work that way. You gone lost your opportunity, girlie. She totally flipped out, said I should have told her at the DMV she could sell it and keep the money. She told her mother I was being totally unfair. My wife agreed to her not getting the truck, probably because she didn't want me buying a brand new Silverado. The next day, she very sweetly asked for the truck again and then hinted about me finally getting a Silverado. I didn't say anything. I went in my office, printed out a McDonald's employment application, I stuck it in an envelope and handed it to her. She was ecstatic, probably thinking it was the title. She opened it and said, "You suck." I told her, "If you want a Wrangler, get a job." My wife said I was an idiot. I took it way too far. Maybe so, but I've realized our kid needs to learn not only the value of a dollar, but also needs to learn how to be grateful in life. It sucks this happened since it was part of her birthday. I didn't anticipate this type of behavior. It was upsetting. Now every time I look at my truck, all I can think is, it's a grandpa truck. Not the jerk. You are clueless though and need to parent better. There is no way she turned 16 and gained this attitude. She's been like this for a while with others and you thought it was cute. Now it's come back to bite you and so you're trying to teach her a lesson. I guess better late than never. I hope that you both learned something from this experience. Not every bratty teen is the result of bad parenting. I raised my kids exactly the same and one was bratty and two weren't. It took a while for the one with the attitude to grow out of it. Parents don't have control over personality. Two were grateful for the used cars we bought for them, and nothing was good enough for the other one. Exactly what I was thinking. I have 3 kids, and from the paths they took and their personalities, you would never think they had the same parents. I'm still gobsmacked that when we offered to help out our oldest by supplying a car for her to drive, by buying one from a trusted mechanic friend, her first comment was to complain that she didn't want a white one. The sheer entitlement bowled me over. We told her it was that or nothing because we weren't going to take a risk purchasing a second-hand car from an unknown seller. At least she had the grace to be embarrassed about her reaction later, but I'm still stunned that a kid I raised had that little gratitude. I promise you, it was not something that we instilled in her. Thousands of euros for the damaged car. In my home country, living abroad now, the gas stations have people who will fill your tank for you. It's not optional. These people are paid to put fuel in your tank. That's it. I was one of them during my college years. The fuel we had at the station was unleaded Benson 95, 98, and 100, and diesel. One day, a regular customer came over. He was a taxi driver. I had seen him before, both with his taxi car, a Mercedes, and his private car, an Audi. The Mercedes was a diesel car, and the Audi was Benson. Keep in mind, back then, every taxi in the country was running with diesel. That day, he came with a taxi. I noticed he was a bit out of it, but didn't comment on it. I asked how much he wants in the tank. He said, "Full, unleaded, 100. I looked at him strangely. "You mean diesel?" "No, I mean unleaded 100. "But sir, you have the..." I didn't get the chance to point out that he was driving his taxi. He goes, "Young girl, please, I know what fuel my car needs." I look at him one more time. I was getting upset at this point. "Okay, sir, full tank, unleaded 100. Is that correct?" "Yes, thank you." Right away. And I proceed to put unleaded 100 in his diesel car. He paid and left. 2 days later, he comes again on my shift with his Audi this time. I go out to greet him by trying not to laugh at his face. "What's it gonna be today, sir? Diesel?" I asked, trying to bite my tongue. He eyed me carefully. "Unleaded 100, please. Full tank." "Are you sure?" I asked, and he side-checked his car. "Yes, thank you." "Right away, sir." I fill his tank, and as he was paying, he adds, "Next time, I would appreciate it if you told me I was being an idiot and putting in the incorrect gas to the tank." He said this seriously, but I could see the humor in his eyes. "Was the damage that much?" I asked. He groaned. "You have no idea. Have a good day." And he left. I never found out what the cost was of the damage, but for my duration at that gas station, when I was the one loading his car, he always would go like, "Full tank, please," without saying what kind. Karen coworker tells everyone I'm not actually British. She really ends up regretting it. For context, I'm a 20-something British-American male living in a very southern and undereducated part of the US. I've been here for a while now, and generally when I tell people where I'm from, I get a little pushback because I don't really have as thick of an accent anymore. On to the story. I work in a small office. We have a rolling line of temps that come and go. Most of them are barely high school graduates or people with very little in the way of worldly experience. This is important for later. So one day, they bring the usual parade of new hires around, and I do my introduction. "Hi, I'm OP. I'm one of the recruiters here at Company X. I'm married with 2 dogs, and I am originally from the UK. Normally, this is just a throwaway line that I use as an icebreaker, and it normally rolls right off. Until this one wonderful young woman pipes up. You don't sound British." She, of course, left out the T very purposefully. Me. "Sorry, love. Forgot the coat and tails at home," I say as I drink my Twinings. The group kind of laughed it off, and I figured it was a pretty open and shut deal. Nope. A couple of days later, word gets around that this chick has been telling a bunch of people that I'm not British and that I'm lying for clout. She said that I don't even sound British and that she is dating a British guy and knows how they act. So rather than being a mature adult, I do the very British thing of malicious compliance. "I need an intern to bring me some tea. Would you mind climbing the apple and pears and pouring me a cup of Rosie Lee?" I started wearing 3-piece suits, a pocket watch, and a monocle I found at a thrift shop. I went Super Saiyan 3 British. Obviously, about 3 hours into the first day, my boss wants to know what's up. I tell her, and she finds it so hilarious that she assigns that intern to me for the rest of the day. I kept using odd British rhyming phrases and sayings that she would have to keep asking me to speak normal. I would reply, "But I thought you knew how us British people act." She quickly realized her error, and we've been cordial ever since. Nowadays, I keep my old red passport in my desk drawer just in case someone pulls that stunt again. And for the record, I'm not British, I'm English, and a Scouser at that. I prevented my nephew from getting bit by a rattlesnake. Now his mother is furious with me. My 11-year-old son goes to a skate park after school with his friends, which includes his cousin, my nephew, Jack, who's also 11. I went to pick up the boys when I saw a crowd of the kids by the fence. I went over and asked what was so interesting, and they pointed to a snake. Not just any snake, but a rattlesnake. They had never seen one before, maybe outside of a zoo, and I assumed they were trying to get it to strike because they didn't think they'd get bit. I told them all to get away from it, and they did, except for Jack, who actually got closer with his phone. I think he wanted to get a close-up video of the snake striking. I yelled at him to get away, and he told me to hold on. I took him by his arm and pulled him away. He gave me this angry stare. I told him, "What the heck? That snake could hurt you." He gave me the silent treatment until his mom picked him up. Then 20 minutes later, she called me up in a rage about how I grabbed him and did this and did that and hurt him, etc., and I'm not his dad. I asked her if her sweet little angel told her about the rattlesnake that he was provoking. She said, "What snake?" I hung up. She called up again and said that I still owed her and Jack an apology for handling him. I told her to buzz off and check his phone, and see if I did any of that stuff, as his camera was recording everything. An hour later, my brother called me up and said what Jack did was stupid and he was happy I was there, but I still owed his wife an apology for telling her to buzz off. I said I'm not apologizing for nothing, at least until she apologizes to me for coming at me sideways twice. To be honest, I don't even care because I don't like her anyways. He apologized and I said not acceptable. She needs to apologize. Your sister-in-law needs to apologize and to learn that you don't just listen to kids then go nuclear, you ask questions. If she had asked questions like a normal human, then she would not have gone nuclear. She has issues and she's teaching her son that he's a precious being that no one can discipline. I mean, seriously, it was a rattlesnake and you were yelled at for handling him. Yeah, she owes you a big apology and also needs to take some anger management and parenting classes. She's teaching her kid that he can lie and she will go full nuclear, rather than teaching her kid about the boy who cried wolf. Entire class skips optional early start to lab. We were given an hour for lunch and we're going to take all of our time. I'm a second-year veterinary student. This is the time when we start our live surgery labs. We work in teams of 3 students, a surgeon, an assistant, and an anesthetist, and are obviously overseen by certified specialists, anesthesiologists and surgeons, and many experienced vet nurses as well. We have lectures from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Lunch is 11 to 12. Our lab begins at 12 p.m. sharp. However, we were told we have the option to come to lab early and begin. It became very clear after the first week this is an expectation, not an option, that we will skip lunch or eat during lecture and come straight to the OR. During one lab at 11:50 a.m., the anesthesiologist yelled at a student for a few minutes in the pharmacy area while getting drugs for the lab for not having his patient ready and waiting in the induction room 10 minutes before lab even begins. And this group was set to induce during the last wave, normally 1 to 1.5 hours into lab. There's no reason to be an hour early when your group is final wave. Being on time is sufficient, and they were actually still early. Our class has been getting berated by this anesthesiologist as well as some of the surgeons in this lab. Just as one example, a student surgeon asked for help. A surgical resident came over from another patient to help, and she was now not sterile. The resident told the student she was holding her forceps wrong, proceeded to grab them from her hands, and then made the student leave her patient on the table to re-scrub, re-gown, and re-glove, and open a new instrument pack, all because she wanted to ask a question. This is a common technique they will use on us when we've done something incorrect to get us to remember it next time. Well, the entire class is fed up with this. Our class called a meeting about it, and we all decided we're all going to start showing up to lab at 11:50 to 11:55 a.m., only 5 to 10 minutes early. Not for petty reasons either, but it's a matter of patient safety as well. Several students have fainted from skipping lunch to go and operate instead. We were given 11 to 12 for lunch, and we're going to take all of our time. So that's what we did. At 11:40 a.m., one of the surgeons came to our lecture hall, where the majority of us stay and eat lunch, and asked us why we're not in the lab yet. A student at the front of the room said simply, "Lab begins at 12 noon. The surgeon gave us a long spell about professionalism and how we're all being inappropriate and putting our patients at risk, and she left. The OR is a 2-minute walk from the lecture hall, so we finished lunch and all showed up around 11:55. The clinicians were very mad about it and reported our class to the dean, and so the dean called a school-wide meeting about it. Some of our classmates spoke eloquently about our reasons and our actual patient safety concern, turning it right back on the clinicians citing patient safety. And the school claims to care immensely about student mental health, and cutting our break/lunch is no way to support us. Beyond that, the schedule says we begin at 12, and we're still showing up a few minutes early to ensure we can begin right at 12. Ultimately, the dean just released a statement saying they cannot force us to begin lab an hour early, and we will start at 12 when the dean's office scheduled lab to begin. It's a small win for us. Certainly we will face backlash, but we have a break to eat at least. Our class is known for not putting up with BS from the school. We got a dinosaur of a professor fired for the inappropriate comments she made to a student during the middle of a lecture. After she had terrorized students at this school for decades, she forgot our lectures were automatically recorded on Zoom during lockdown. We're hated by the clinicians, but at least the classes behind us are having a slightly better time. Edit. About the fainting thing. Yes, from skipping a single meal, most healthy adults shouldn't faint. Add on top of that the mental stress of operating for the first few times, the heat from the surgical lights, being covered head to toe in a non-breathable, sterile barrier which traps in your body heat, a mask putting that heat back on your face, having to stand relatively still in one place for hours, no access to water for hours. You can't move your arms out of the sterile field, so limited and no stretching. Plus the sight of blood being a common trigger, and you have plenty of lightheaded and fainting students. Skipping food is added insult to injury when you last ate at 6 a.m. and it's now 4 p.m. and you haven't had water since noon, and you're overheating and stressed. Not to mention, vet school is a conception of type A high-achieving perfectionists with chronic stress from constant high-stakes exams. Fail and you're out of the program, some of which are right before you go off into operating or maybe occurring the next day. Rampant anxiety and depression, sleep deprivation from our schedule and/or insomnia. I know several classmates with disordered eating or full-blown EDs. It's not merely an isolated incident of skimping lunch one time. Am I the jerk for showing up to a party with my pregnant wife that my infertile ex was at? I, 35 male, used to be married to my high school sweetheart, Kelly, 35 female. We got married after undergrad, and overall I would say that we were really happy. The biggest conflict that I would say we had was the topic of having kids. Not the idea of actually having them, but when. I've always wanted to be a dad and wanted to have my kids while I was still young enough to run around with them while they were kids and to have a good relationship with them once they were older. Kelly brought up a lot of good points about needing to get married, living fully on our own, and being out of debt first. For about 5 years, I worked a job I had no passion for, solely because of the large paycheck, and I was able to nearly wipe out our debt completely. We didn't have a lot to begin with in the first place. Then Kelly said she wanted a house, so we got one. Then a few months in, she talked about wanting to go to grad school. Even though we often fought about having kids, in the end, I always supported her choices because I didn't want her to resent me. I would often ask her if Kelly had ever changed her mind about wanting kids, but she assured me that she still did, just not now. I asked when would she be, and it always felt like she kept moving the goalpost whenever she'd list her requirements, and that I was painted as a jerk for pressuring her to have kids. Unfortunately, after weeks of not feeling well, Kelly was diagnosed with an illness. It was rough, but I stood by her and she pulled through, but the cost was her fertility. I felt like a jerk again because a part of me resented Kelly for not agreeing to have kids sooner. And that resentment grew when Kelly refused to look into using a surrogate, insisting that either we were both the biological parents or neither of us were. In the end, I couldn't take it and just divorced her. A lot of people called me selfish, they called me other names, etc. But I just wasn't sure if this was something that I would be able to truly let go of. I let Kelly keep the house and I moved out of town. Eventually I met and fell in love with Angela, who's 32, and shortly after moving in together, she got pregnant, so we got married. She's entering her 3rd trimester with our baby, and I'm so excited. A friend back in college moved back to the States and wanted to have a small party to see everyone. He invited Kelly and me, so I checked in with him privately and asked if it would be okay to bring my wife, and he said that it was cool, so I did. This was the first time I saw Kelly in person for years, and she looked well enough. I was polite but kept my distance and thought everything was good until the next day when I got a barrage of texts and DMs blasting me for having the audacity to parade my heavily pregnant, new, younger wife in front of my infertile ex-wife. I had no malicious intentions, and it has been a few years. Plus, I asked beforehand just to double check, so am I the jerk? ETA. Talked about this with someone in the comments. Kelly said it would be too upsetting at the idea of me having a baby with another woman, regardless of how the child was conceived. It was either adopt or nothing at all. I honestly felt like there was no way we could progress in the relationship without one of us resenting the other, so I filed. If she truly didn't want kids, she put on a great performance. Before her illness, she would constantly gush over other people's babies, insisted buying a house in a good school district for our future kids, and even talked in extensive detail about wanting to be a stay-at-home mom for up to 6 years. I think Kelly just assumed that we'd always have time, and then life threw a curveball. If Kelly had stated that she would have been open to having kids sooner, under the condition that I be the primary caretaker, I would have done it. I would have even taken a lesser-paying job so I could have the free time to do it. I never wanted to be put in a position where she felt like she would have to give up her career entirely. ETA 2. Stepped away for a little bit, but I just wanted to be clear about something. I did not leave Kelly while she was still sick. It was a year after she was healthy again, and we had been in therapy for months. Not the jerk. You divorced. It doesn't sound like you did her over in it, and you each have your own lives now. She should have known having kids was important to you, since that was obviously a wedge issue in your relationship with her, so she shouldn't have been shocked that you went on to achieve that goal. Also, 32 is essentially the same age as 35. It's not like you showed up with a pregnant 20-something. Not the jerk. It's sad that Kelly is infertile, but you didn't bring your wife to rub her infertility in her face. You reached out to your friend and you got the okay. Just block anyone sending you those kinds of texts. Also, from what you wrote, it sounds like Kelly never wanted kids and she kept leading you on with the hope that you'd eventually drop the issue. Divorcing her was the right move too. If not, your resentment would have kept growing. Am I the jerk for paying for just my meal so I wasn't stuck with everyone else's bill? I was lucky enough to get a great job after I graduated. I make pretty good money and my job is challenging but fun. Some of my friends didn't bother with college, and some who did go chose less lucrative fields. I'm not rich or anything. I'm not buying a Porsche anytime soon. I just have a good salary and very few bills since I still live at home. I got a very nice hiring bonus when I was recruited, and I took my friends out for what I made clear was a one-time celebration. Every once in a while, I get together with my friends and go to a restaurant. We usually end up splitting the bill. I don't drink a lot, so I might have a beer with my meal, but that's it. I know they don't all have disposable income like I do, so I usually also cover the tip. They tend to go overboard. Like one girl orders 5 or 6 drinks over the course of the meal, and she will order appetizers for the table. I never eat the appetizers because they're almost always deep fried, and I tend to avoid that stuff. It's also common for one of us to leave and just cash app or leave money for the bill. Last Saturday, we went out to a nice Mexican restaurant. The food was excellent and my margarita was delicious. That girl brought her girlfriend and a couple of the guys brought their girlfriends. I mentioned that I had to have an early night. After we finished eating, I hung around until everyone started ordering more drinks and desserts and all that. And I'm not joking here. One girl even ordered a to-go meal for her roommate. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. Afterwards, I paid my bill at the front of the house and bailed. I started getting texts about 45 minutes later. The bill came and they wanted to split it. I told them I had already paid my share and I had to leave. My bill was $55, including the tip. The 3 guys and the girl were going to be splitting the remaining $640. They wanted to split their guest's bill as well. The other guy, who didn't invite someone, was saying it wasn't fair for him to split the bill when I didn't. I said that I had paid for my food bill and I wasn't going to give more. They ended up each paying their own bill, and one guy ended up paying for his dates, and her roommate's food. He's especially salty about the situation. The other single guy also ended up just paying for his own stuff, and he's also in their bad books. I feel bad for leaving without saying goodbye, but if I stuck around, I'd be subsidizing food for strangers. Not the jerk, but I feel like you should have gone back to the table and said, I paid for my portion. Good to see you guys. I have an early morning. Other than that, you're not expected to pay for anyone else's bills, so they have no cause to be upset. Am I the jerk for dressing casually to a work dinner? My girlfriend, Lauren, has a great relationship with her boss, Chelsea. Actually, really friendly outside of work. They go to dinner or lunch together and discuss both work stuff and real talk. Even though Lauren always looks very clean and put together, she also isn't a very professional dresser in my opinion. Not the way an office lady usually looks. She rarely wears makeup, keeps her hair in a short cut, and does nothing to style it, and wears only pants to work, never a dress or a skirt, and only button-downs and blazers. I love her, and I love that the work environment she's in lets her feel comfortable enough to dress like this. She likes makeup. She just likes either to be barefaced or to go for dramatic looks that aren't appropriate for the office. Rarely, she'll put on some lipstick and basic contouring. Those two facts together made me think when she invited me to join her at a work dinner on Tuesday that it wasn't a formal occasion. I asked Lauren what was she wearing, and she said nice slacks, a button-down, and a blazer, telling me that I would be fine to do the same. Plus, on FaceTime, she had metallic eyeshadow and white eyeliner on. So I dressed in dark blue jeans and a plaid flannel button-down. When I showed up, I quickly realized Not only was there more than just Lauren and Chelsea, but I was the only person wearing jeans. Not that it was easy to see that, especially once we were all sat down. One of Lauren's coworkers was wearing a polo and khakis though, which I felt was equal to my outfit. No one looked twice at my clothes and we all had a good time. It was a non-issue. Lauren and I had planned on her following me home so she could stay the night with me. But when we got to our cars, she said she didn't want to anymore because she was mad I didn't dress appropriately to dinner. I said I dressed just as appropriately as she did because there was nothing business appropriate about wearing white eyeliner. She just laughed in my face at that and told me to buzz off. I tried texting and calling her, but she just told me to leave her alone and refused to discuss the fight instead of just shutting me down. Edit. No, not all women need to wear skirts to be professional, but you match the formality of your boss in the work, and Lauren is the only woman in the office that never wears a dress or a skirt. Contrast where Chelsea always does. No, she doesn't need long hair to be professional, but there needs to be some styling to it, something to give body or make it look less like she just ran a brush through it and called it a day. It wasn't a lumberjack-style flannel, it was black and white and pressed nicely. I could have dressed it up with a jacket, and in hindsight I would have. You're the jerk. She said she was wearing nice slacks, a button-down, and a blazer. How does that translate to you wearing jeans and a flannel? You picking apart her physical appearance makes you double the jerk. Why do you think she needs to wear makeup and have special hairdos for work? From what I read here, her work is business professional and she meets it. How she looks is irrelevant. ETA, a polo and khakis are business casual. You showed up casual. Am I the jerk for not acting impressed by my wife's accomplishment? I'm 28, male, and my wife, who's 26, female, we've been married for close to 7 years. We currently have 5 kids together, who are 6, 4, 3, and my wife gave birth to fraternal twins, son and daughter, a year and a half ago. My wife intended to graduate high school the year we got married, but life got in the way. My dad had given me an investor relations type of role at his company, so we were traveling a lot, and then after that our kids needed our attention. After our twins were born, my wife was bedridden for longer than we and even the doctors expected. Since we had to hire extra hands to do the childcare tasks that involved mobility, my wife had some time on her hands. Her mother told her that her friend who proctors at a testing center said that they give GED tests basically every week, at least across the state of Idaho, and that she should dust off her general education knowledge. She started browsing her laptop and decided to enroll in a GED prep class online. It seemed she was better at self-paced learning than classroom learning, because the stuff they were testing her on came way easier to her now than it did back in school, even though she's been away from structured classroom instruction for many years now. Even after she was back on her feet, she'd be studying for it after she dropped the older two off to their respective schools. I would see that she was studying, and it looked pretty rudimentary, and I knew that getting a GED basically means nothing and that she probably wouldn't be able to apply it to anything career-wise or commit full-time to community college, where I doubt the job prospects for students are that great right now either. So my wife ended up taking the test, and the other day she bounded into the room and said, "Yes, I passed, yes!" I knew she would since she was doing well on the practice tests, and the GED consistently tests on the same rudimentary topics. I did not gripe at her, but merely nodded at her and went back to answering an important email from a client. My wife seemed to get upset, and I asked her what was wrong. She said I didn't seem that excited, and I said that it's great that she passed, but I've been telling her that it was easy and no big deal. But if she needed something to prove to herself she knew the high school concepts, I guess the money was well spent. She got even more upset and said she worked very hard, and this was the essential building blocks to being able to start a career. Am I the jerk? My wife passed her GED test, but she wasn't exactly graduating from college and wouldn't be for at least 15 years. I just didn't see any immediate applicability to her test, but I am glad she had something to challenge her while she was coming off being unable to fully care for the kids. You're the jerk. You're a major jerk. Your wife is trying to look after 5 kids and found the time to get her GED. Why don't you let her go out of town for a week and see how hard it is to look after 5 kids? Would it have hurt you to get up and hug her and tell her how proud you are of her? Maybe take her out to dinner one night to celebrate. Wow, I hope this isn't indicative of the respect you give her the rest of the time. You're the jerk. Like there needs to be a level above this rating for this post. She feels accomplished because she did something that she put on hold for your lives together. Meanwhile, daddy handed you a job and you reek of self-importance. You're the jerk. You have important emails from clients to answer, and your wife, who has 5 kids under the age of 7, was finally able to get her GED, and you sniff. It's obvious you see your wife as nothing more than an underling. Keep in mind, dude, you had to get your job from your daddy. Attend a mandatory interview for a job they don't want? In my late teens, I worked for the job center. I was sitting in observing an employer interviewing for warehouse jobs. My role was to confirm the attendees were responding seriously rather than just to keep getting benefits. My checklist was specific, just a numbered list with check yes or no. Did they answer this question in full? 15 questions. Nothing personal about the client, like how they present themselves or the content of their answers. We had one client who had been unemployed since before my birth. Mr. P, not incapable of working, he just didn't want to. Nice enough chap and very well educated. Sadly for him, he had been informed that if he didn't attend this job interview, his benefits would cease for 26 weeks. In he trots to his mandatory interview. It had obviously been raining because he was rather soggy and smelled like when you open a tent that's not been used for a long time. He's wearing full camo gear, a baseball cap saying, "Bad girl looking for a good time," whilst pulling a shopping trolley filled with newspapers wrapped in twine. He's also wearing leather sandals with socks. He proceeds to remove his sandals and very wet socks, wring them out over the carpet, and carefully place the socks on the radiator. By this point, the interviewing manager's chin is on the floor, and I'm trying not to look anywhere but my own lap in case I start laughing. The guy answered all of the interview questions perfectly normally, but interspersed the time between questions with comments like, "I just picked a raspberry seed from between my teeth. The last time I ate anything good was about 6 months ago." Just as they were about to end the interview, I'm internally congratulating myself on keeping my face neutral. He groaned, rubbed his knee, and announced his cervix had a cramp. I lost it and I had to leave the room. He did not get the job. He also kept his benefits. For some reason, the employer began using a recruitment agency for their vacancies not long afterwards. R.I.P. Mr. P. Well done on beating the system for so long. Edit. Just to clarify, Mr. P wasn't homeless, had no mental issues he made us aware of, and usually dressed normally. I'm not mocking a vulnerable person. I'm not making fun of anyone's misfortune, except the interviewers. Would I be the jerk for not wanting a woman I used to bully at my wedding? I wasn't a great person in high school. My friends and I had our own little clique, and we weren't nice to some of our classmates. I tried going to college, but it wasn't for me. I got a job at a car dealership and eventually started selling cars. I'm pretty good at it, so I make a good living. My younger brother did great in university, and he has a pretty good future ahead of him. After he graduated, he started working in the city, and there's a club there for graduates from his university. He ran into a girl that I wasn't very nice to in high school. She's a couple of years older than him, but they started dating. I don't think she realized he was my brother. He likes that they grew up in the same town. They're at the meeting the family stage, and he brought her home for Christmas. My parents had sold their home after we all moved out, so they didn't live in the same town anymore. She recognized me right away. I didn't recognize her. I guess she got past the ugly duckling part of growing up. She is very physically attractive. She is also doing well in life. She didn't say anything until I approached her after dinner. She asked if I honestly couldn't remember her. I didn't, until she reminded me of the stuff I used to say to her. I felt sick to my stomach. I immediately apologized for everything and said that I had been a bad kid and that I had grown up since then. She said that she was glad and that she accepted my apology. I sent out my wedding invitations recently, and my brother RSVP'd with his +1. I asked him who he was bringing. He said that he was bringing his girlfriend, the girl from Christmas, so I guess she never mentioned me. I kind of want to ask him not to bring her. A lot of my old friends will be at the wedding, and I don't want anything to happen. She forgave me, but I still think it's kind of strange that she never brought up our past to my brother. Would I be a jerk if I asked him not to bring her to my wedding? You're the jerk. You don't sound like you've grown into as much of a better person since high school as you credit yourself with. Ugly duckling phase? You're still in your mean girls phase. You're the jerk. She accepted your apology, and she hasn't told your brother how awful you were or tried to drive a wedge between you. She hasn't done anything to try to get revenge on you, but you still want to exclude her. You're still not a great person. You're the jerk. This is real life, not a Hallmark Channel movie. She sounds like she's grown up past her high school experience, but you have not. What do you think she's going to do at your wedding? Have some big scene where she calls you out? Real humans tend not to do that kind of stuff. Am I the jerk for making fun of my friend for not washing ground chicken? I, male 25, have a friend, female 25, whom I often cook with. Nothing romantic between us. We just like to get together every once in a while. One thing we do is food prep once a month, and every single time I use chicken or a roast, she insists on washing the meat. I've tried on multiple occasions to explain to her that meat doesn't need to be washed before you cook it. She refuses to listen, and she refuses to eat the food we make unless I wash the meat. We got together this morning for our food prep day. She brought a big package of ground chicken. I had chicken thighs and pork chops. As usual, she insisted that I wash the meat. I asked her if she wanted to use the sink to wash her ground chicken before we used it. She said I was being ridiculous because ground meat doesn't need to be washed because the meat gets washed before they grind it. I said she was being silly because that makes no sense. I pulled up a YouTube video of ground chicken being made. Nope, the meat never got washed. She said that it was just one video, so I asked her to find one where they washed the meat. She couldn't. She said that her mom always washed the meat before she cooked it. I asked her if her mom washed the ground meat too. She said I was being a jerk for making fun of her and her mom. We made our food in silence and she left, but she's still mad at me. Not the jerk. The USDA says not to wash meat because doing so can spread pathogens. But maybe check with her on where her mom grew up. Maybe they didn't have the same food safety laws. And depending on how old her mom is, maybe she grew up at a time where it was a good idea. We farm and raise hogs, chickens, cows. My grandpa was an inspector for USDA. Some habits are ingrained. My partner was raised in farming, and some meats still get a quick rinse and the sink gets sterilized. It really isn't the end of the world, just make sure to have strong disinfectant. He's not the jerk, and it's odd, but some people have comfort zones and rituals. Not the jerk, and it doesn't sound like you were making fun of her. Washing meat actually spreads more bacteria unless you're also giving the sink a good scrub each time with something disposable. And cooking your food kills whatever bacteria is on it. If she wants to have this hang up about her food, fine, but she's got no business forcing it on you. Sounds like cooking might not be the best of activities to share. My ex's daughter keeps destroying my relationships on purpose. I, 35 female, used to date a guy we'll call Jacob, 37 male. We dated for 9 months before we mutually agreed to break up. Jacob has a 16-year-old daughter we'll call Emma. Emma's mom is not in her life, and apparently all previous exes treated her horribly. Emma calls me mom. I never had an issue with it even after the breakup, since I knew she didn't really have one and I cared for her. Emma often comes to visit me and stays over. About 2 months ago, I went on a date. Emma found out, but acted really excited for me and even insisted on helping me pick out a dress. We had a blast and even went for ice cream after. The date went well, and I thought things were going good. However, about 1 week later, I received a text from my date calling me a horrible person and telling me to never talk to him again. This happened for the next 3 dates I went on, and at this point, I knew something was up. On the 4th date, the same thing happened as the previous 3 dates. However, this time I decided to ask for an explanation. He then sent me screenshots of messages he had received from a random number, claiming that I had a family and that I was cheating. I was shocked to see that the number which sent the messages was Emma's. Emma came over later that day, and I showed her the screenshots and asked if she sent this to all my previous dates. She admitted to sending this message to all my dates and apologized, saying that she thought if I got in a relationship, she would lose me. I felt bad and told her that she would never lose me and I would always be there for her. We had a heart-to-heart and then got sushi, and I thought this was the end of it. I went on another date last week. I had told my date about Emma and everything that had happened with her. He thought it was funny and had no problem with her being in my life still. Well, a day later, he sent me a message, and what do you know? Emma had messaged him the exact same messages she sent to everyone else. I called Emma and asked why she did this again when we had already talked about it, and told her that if she doesn't stop, she will not be able to come over to my house for a while, which is something I don't want to do. She got mad and started losing it on me before saying that I should get back with her father because we didn't end on bad terms before hanging up on me. I called her father and explained the situation. I told him that I think we need to get her a therapist, as I think our breakup affected her more than we thought. I then told him that until the situation was resolved and she apologized, she shouldn't come over to my house for a while. I would still talk to her, just not see her until she starts therapy. Well, her father was furious. He called me everything in the book and said that while she was in the wrong and should see a therapist, I was a jerk for essentially cutting her out of my life because of it. I explained that it was only temporarily until the situation was resolved, however, he hung up. It's been a day and I feel really bad, as I'm the only healthy mother figure she's ever had. However, I don't think I'm in the wrong, as it's only until she starts therapy. So, am I the jerk? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.